Just want to be cognizant of time for the people that are here for our meeting as well, including Kate. So Jennifer, are you good with us starting the meeting? Okay, very good. All right. So we are going to call the meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. And I appreciate your giving us a few extra minutes as we were setting things up so it can work well. For we have our guest visitors, Kate Hogan and Jamie Eldridge will be coming as well. So we are going to try to power through some of these beginning items so that we can get right to them being able to join us for a little conversation around the state of Maynard and unique challenges that we face. So the first thing that we have, the second item on the agenda is approval of prior meeting minutes. So I'm going to need some, Colleen has been really trying to get, as she's moved into her new position, get into catching up on stuff that we've had over the summer. Yeah?
I'm going to be recording.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. With everything else going on, I did not ask that question, so I really appreciate your saying that. And I also, that reminds me of a few other things that I should say, which includes, hi Jamie, great to see you. Thank you for being here. We are also recording this meeting through WAVM, and the other thing to know is that we will, as you'll see, there are 2 citizens' comments. We have one that's going to happen for folks to be able to engage with Representative Hogan and Senator Eldridge, and then we have one at the end. And just note that for those periods, we just ask that people do try to just consider hitting the highlights of their comments. Try to, as much as possible, stick to 3 minutes. I know sometimes that's tricky, and just for respecting everyone in the room and everyone's time. So I think that's it. So now I'm going to move into making sure that I understand approval of the prior meeting minutes. So I just need to have a sense from Colleen which meeting minutes we are. Does everyone?
7/3, July 3rd.
July 3rd.
July 3rd meeting minutes. Yep. Okay. Very good. So we have July 3rd meeting minutes at this point, and then we're going to be moving from there and getting others at subsequent meetings. So we're starting to power through those, and including executive meetings that we were looking at, but I'm not clear that those got into the order. Generally speaking, the guidance I got from Mass, just so everyone's aware, was that you can approve or consider executive meeting minutes at quarterly 6-month intervals, depending on how many you're having. Okay, so there was a late-breaking one for executive session on July 6th, and for that one, I'm not sure that people have had a chance to look it over. So let's do that at the next meeting and consider whether or not first we vote on the minutes and whether or not we're going to release them when it's executive session. So we'll hold on that, and then we'll also get a chance. Colleen has now worked out like a structure, since this was all new to her, and we also have the new interim superintendent. We were figuring out the structure for those. So those are now, we now have a structure that will work for reporting out those minutes.
I know we had approved one set of executive session.
Wait, what?
We did approve one set of the executive session meeting minutes from the paraprofessional.
Yep.
That wasn't on the...
When we ratified the contract.
Right, it was at the next meeting
Yeah, it's
after,
in that
right?
folder that I gave you.
Oh, great. So that one's all set.
That was all
Well,
set.
if we have a digital file of it.
Well, so let's deal with that at the next meeting so that we know that we're in order. And once we have the structure in place, then we'll be good for moving forward.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So that will be a clear objective for the next meeting, to make sure those are both in order. And then we're also in the meantime continuing to make sure that we have the structures we need for moving forward and considering retroactively to the last bunch of minutes that we've been trying to figure out from before, back in former superintendent's tenure. So July 3rd minutes. Are there any?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the July 3rd meeting.
I second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, very good, thank you. So my report, I'm just going to be very short today because I would like to get to the meat of our discussion with our representatives here. So a few things where there's the National Honor Society induction. We've been invited to that on October 22nd at 7, and we will have a number of school committee members attending, which is very exciting. And we, I did receive a note that I thought I would read because it's just nice to be able to hear about these things. This is from Jeff Swanberg. He said, "Thank you kindly for the citation you awarded me at May's town meeting. The Cultural Council strives to recognize those who are building a strong community in Maynard, and in turn it is wonderful to receive this recognition from you. I'm looking forward to working with you to continue to build a strong future for our town, and hope we can further engage the creative energies of Maynard students in the process." So that was just very nice, and great to hear from, for the being a small town and being able to have those collaborations and being able to do that is really fantastic. I think that the only other thing I wanted to check in on was I already talked about the executive session minutes, and ensuring that our videos are, that we can get posted to YouTube, that those are getting, so we're in process with making sure that the summer meetings, that we can get things posted to YouTube. So we'll continue doing that work. Make sure that's okay. And then,
I think Colleen was looking into,
22nd was the,
everything should be up.
everything should be up?
yeah, I was just-
Great, thank you. I know you've been playing catch up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
And then the last thing that I have was just, I think maybe we should be asking Stephen to be added to all communication distribution lists. Does that make sense to you? So,
Thought you did that, but I'll double check.
okay, that would be great, because I don't think that we're getting them all yet. I know
No,
everyone-
yeah, I was gonna ask that as well.
Great.
Thank you.
The school ones?
School
Every
committees.
listserv that there is for the different,
Each
for each
school.
school building, and then obviously for the district, which I think they end up ticking off every building to get. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's all I
think we're
have.
only getting Fowler right now.
So I'm going to keep this short so that we can get on to our discussion with our representatives. And now we have our student report with Patrick O'Neill and Tulu Siddiqui. Days Tulu. Thank you.
Good evening, guys. So we have kind of a mellow week some ways, but we're starting up in the high school. So this Monday we had an Alice drill. So that was like during B block. So that went pretty well. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. So we got good comments from that. We've been having great specific assemblies. So during the past 2 weeks, each class has gone to the auditorium. So like Mr. Karagenis and their advisors can talk about like what's next in high school and what they should be doing and where they should be at. In NHS update, we had a executive meeting yesterday, and like as you said, the induction is happening in October, so that's pretty soon. Currently, we are planning homecoming, and our first community group project will be in mid-October, and that will most likely involve the reorganization of our library, along maybe with like a mural in there. And our individual group service projects will always start in October. And quick WAVM update, raffle tickets are due tomorrow, so to participate in it, you have to meet the minimum requirement of raffle tickets sold, and you have to get this in by tomorrow. The presentation will be in a while here, and the host and tech crew signups are due this Friday. And I know much of us are doing it, so we're excited for that and telethon. Last Saturday we had the football game with the pep band, and that was around like 2. That went pretty well. People had some fun. And the advisories have started. So for like a quick list, I did the Geekish Chic one, which was pretty fun. So we learned about engineering and all that in there. So we have yoga, Sudoku, ultimate frisbee, preparing for life after high school, which I've taken a couple times. It actually just kind of helped me prepare for what I want to do next in life. We have book club and many more. And overall, clubs have started going, so you'll be seeing more stuff coming out of the high school, more events, and like, especially like fundraisers and all that. So yeah, we're on our way. The engines have started. questions.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I can always take something off my list when you go, after they go. We've had all of our curriculum nights at each of the school. Green Meadows was hugely successful. It was standing room only in the cafeteria, and parents seemed pleased and positive. There continues to be a positive vibe at Green Meadow, and as children have settled in and teachers are feeling optimistic. Maynard High School, curriculum side of things, the good news is their MCAS scores, which I'll talk about a little later on. They're doing great, and the high school will now be off the turnaround plan as a result of that. They also had a successful parents' night supported by the NHS and peer leaders and various parent groups. We had advisory, again, they had the advisory interest-based sessions. Kids participate in things like yoga, ultimate frisbee, stress reduction techniques, and community service and current event discussions. High school is planning an 8th grade parent night on October 16th, and planning job shadowing opportunity as well. Back to school night was a success at Fowler, and there were hundreds of parents and guardians attending the annual back to school night. Fowler Crisis Team has met for the first time and drafted a template for all 3 schools to use in the event of staff or student emergencies. The Crisis Team collected resources and created a shareable document to all Maynard educators to help in assessing any situation. Second annual Girls in Engineering Workshop, sponsored by Dr. Laura Cosette of Terrible Fund, will be held on Saturday, December 7th from 8:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock at Fowler School, and you'll receive more information as that moves on. We have 2 case programs that are going really well, lots of feedback with the families from their children, so they're very happy that our school is available for them. Get a lot of really positive feedback on that. Chorus and strings are up and running as a before school option, and as well as instrumental lesson, and there's a lot of participation in that. Fowler Cycling Club has 15 regular riders, but the last day will be 10/2, which is next Wednesday, but we'll be back in the spring. Teachers at Fowler are now having weekly data meetings with Mr. Barth, Principal Barth, and looking at formative and summative data to find out where gaps exist in education. And then the new Fowler schedule includes time that's helping the students get more interventions. Today, some members of the leadership team included the CIA principals, assistant superintendent, myself, and the director of pupil services, and members of the special ed department attended a workshop in Boxborough on the Massachusetts tiered system of supports. This is a framework to show how school districts can build necessary systems that ensure students receive high-quality educational experience. It's designed to support schools proactively by identifying and addressing strengths and needs of all students. In 2018, Massachusetts updated this blueprint to reflect the most current research and enhance user experiences, so we're getting a lot of good data to help us support our students socially, emotionally, cultural proficiency, being more inclusive in practices. So we're learning that a little bit today and tomorrow. And finally, MCAS scores, there was a press release in the newspaper, so if you haven't had a chance to look at it, go back to, I think it was Tuesday's newspaper. But just the short of it is grades 3 through 8 exceeded targets in math and science, and they met targets for English language arts. Grades 5 and 8 made the greatest gains in science, and 10th grade students met or exceeded student growth targets for math and English and language arts at the high school. So we'll be giving a presentation on that at the next school committee meeting. Jennifer's getting that information ready for us for that. And that's all that I have.
I just wanted
quickly.
to continue on one of the comments that you made about the case. I know that we're hosting the classes that we host here. One of my associates, her grandson is coming to the Fowler from another town, and the parents have been very, very happy with the experience so far.
Yeah, I go up there at least 3 times a week. I love going up there. The kids are so, so great. Love it.
That's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Got it.
Can I mention something real quick about the case? Just thought about it. I know that as we're kind of thinking about inclusiveness and just the language, I've heard some feedback from some kids that they're just referred to as the case kids
Okay.
often, and so I just wanted to be mindful, like with the teachers, if there's just a better way, because I think they're being integrated into some of the specials coming up.
Sure.
And so part of that integration, I want to make sure that they're not felt alienated in the way that they're referred to.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's really important. That's something we're discussing as an admin team currently, and today's training was a lot about that information as well. So we're working on strategizing how to get that information out to staff and students, make sure that everybody's feeling included in all the conversations. But thank you for bringing that up, because I probably,
I know it's no,
Appreciate that.
I don't think it's any malintent, but I think
No,
just
that's-
more mindful of
and
that.
that's a great idea. Yep.
Anything else? Okay, well then we're going to move into our next agenda item. And we have our special guests here, Representative Kate Hogan and Senator
You guys
Jamie
want to
Aldridge.
come up and sit in the front so that you can see?
Come right up.
Yeah. You don't have to-
Are we going to use the podium?
Yeah, you can you can sit right now. We're just going to summarize some of the strains and that we have and how, we can help you.
We've seen a video before.
No, we're not doing the video.
No video.
Last time I was here.
We got the video.
Tale of
yes.
Two Sisters, is that, yeah, I think that was.
Tale of
don't
Two
remember the
Cities.
title, but it
It's a Tale of Two Cities, yes.
Yeah. You got the video too, I think everybody got the video.
Okay.
Oh, God, I can't see the video.
This is one take away from after discussion.
I appreciate that. So I want to just say thank you for taking time to be here and have this discussion with us.
And also, I just want to say too that we are here with a little bit of information on the bill that's just out, so.
Oh, good.
As you're talking about the needs, we also have some early,
That's
early,
great.
Very early analysis of the living, it's a new living bill.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we have some information.
Right, and Jamie did talk to me today and said that, and I know Michelle was at a meeting today too, so some of this will, hopefully, it's being addressed, but the PowerPoint was put together before today, so. So first of all, I just want to welcome you both, because we know that you're out every single night, and we really appreciate all of the support that you give us throughout the year. I don't know, everybody can't see, but, so just, again, some of these that you've seen before, heard before, but we can't say them enough because they just keep really pounding down on our school system and making it, providing us a lot of stress in being able to provide the best education for our kids. The challenges that are facing all school systems within the Commonwealth are the outdated foundation budget that, up to this point has reflected a loss of more than $1 million a year for Maynard just for essential educational services. So if you accumulate that year after year, it's pretty substantial. Special ed, you're aware of. Circuit breaker contributions fluctuate up and down from year to year. School systems have no control currently over the cost of out-of-district placements for students nor for residential students. So whatever bill comes to us, we have to pay unless we try and file a suit to have the prices lowered. Significant annual increases in healthcare costs. They can wipe out, in Maynard's case, because we have limited new growth, they can actually, right when we sit down for the first meeting for the budget, they can actually, the healthcare increase each year can actually wipe out that new growth because we are limited in what our growth is. And a new one that I brought to Jamie's attention that Maynard is supposedly on the list, although I think we're off of it now, is the creation of the MCAS warning status, which makes no sense to me at all, because right now, the way that the state works is that 9% net operating budget of a school system can be allocated to charter school enrollment. And if you are put in the MCAS warning status, then all of a sudden that turns into 18% of your net operating. So it becomes a spiral down. The state is supposed to be helping us improve our school systems, but by doing that, they're just further exacerbating the situation and might as well close our doors. So So challenges specific to Maynard. Maynard continues to fall below the state per pupil cost, although we receive maximum town support vis-a-vis the other town services. For FY20, Maynard's Chapter 70 funding was level funded from FY19 based on decreasing enrollment, which I understand is pretty much statewide. People just aren't having as many kids. And also partially due to students going to charter schools, which created greater financial stress on our overall budget. The Mass DESE FY20 Chapter 70 funding, and I don't know if this is what you were going to provide, Jamie, but I looked at the district summary and I just compared some of the surrounding communities. Actually, Millis is one that we usually compare to ourselves, but for instance, in Clinton, for each student, the state provides Clinton with $6,635 a student versus Maynard, it's $3,990. So a difference of $2,645 per student, Maynard versus Clinton. And then you've got the difference between the other ones too. So this just gives us, we've been using this graph a lot lately, 1% matters. It just shows where our per student cost per student has fluctuated. We're finally up at a point where we're pretty close to the state, but you can see how far we've dipped over some of the years. And so that, again, has a cumulative negative effect as far as the operating budget that we can use. Other challenges specific to Maynard, the Advanced Math and Science Academy. Charter school is at its maximum enrollment for the host city of Marlborough. As a result, AMSA is reaching out to families from Maynard, Clinton, and Hudson. For each student that leaves Maynard, approximately $17,145 follows that student to AMSA. So so you can only imagine the significant dollars that takes away from our school system. Charter school assessment for FY20 was $1,120,000 basically, and the reimbursement to Maynard is basically $190,000. So it's a net loss of over $900,000 just in 1 year of what we're experiencing. Assabet Valley Vocational High School is another. Obviously, it's a collaborative of Maynard. It's a very useful and valuable collaborative, but similar to the charter school formula, each year Maynard is charged about $19,000 a student, taking those funds again from Maynard school budget. And then over and above that, if there are improvements that the vocational school decides to make, then those costs are passed on proportionately to the different school systems. The other day I happened to be down the road of Assabet, and they have this gorgeous field across the street. And all I could think of is, there are our dollars. You know, I mean, to have that kind of a facility, and again, we are on the receiving end. Whatever bill comes to us, we have to pay. So those are the stresses that are outside of our control. This is a chart that also we've been using that summarizes charter school local aid to say what the assessment has been versus what the reimbursement is, and the net over the last 6 years, I think it was, right, Jen? Or is it even, it's even more than that?
I think it's 9.
Is it 9? So $3.5 million. Imagine what we could be doing with that money.
Ruth?
So, that's pretty amazing. Based on the above-mentioned financial strains from the loss of students to charter and vocational schools and the funds that follow them, Maynard school system hasn't been able to work with a level service budget in recent years. And a level service means just providing the exact same curriculum, staff, and that from year to year. Obviously, with the contractual increases and the cost of living increases and that kind of thing, we've had to actually do less than funded in numerous cases, and we're getting huge support from the town, but obviously there's the rest of the town to run too. So even a level funded budget makes it difficult to move the Maynard school system forward for Maynard students, especially in the areas of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, where all the future jobs are considered. Maynard isn't, and this is another challenge that we seem to keep being thrown into. We are compared with our surrounding neighbors like Concord, Sudbury, Acton, Stowe, and Bolton when we're talking about, you know, the monies that are coming from the state. We're compared to these communities versus some of the other communities that were actually similar to, that have similar demographics to Maynard. Like I use Millis, we use Littleton, that kind of thing. Based on a lower value per residential unit, also our tax rate is one of the highest in the state. This year, it's $21.04 per $1,000 of value. It represents a larger percentage of median household income, because our median household income is basically $88,000. That graph is, or that statistic is actually thanks to David Gavin, because I hadn't even thought of that, but he made us aware of that. Because of the town's small size and limited developmental potential, our new growth dollars are limited every year. Other towns in the surrounding areas tend to have more potential for new growth. And Governor Baker has noted that declining student enrollment, limited municipal fiscal resources, and high transportation costs are contributing to a growing problem for small rural school districts, but it's similar to us, where it's small suburban districts too that are having the exact same challenges, but we don't seem to be given the same formula as those. So again, I know some of this now is stuff that you guys are going to be talking to us about, which is wonderful, but the foundation budget, we all know it's outdated, had no room for actually appreciation even through the years. It just was stuck in that budget, and that didn't take into account so many things that have come to surface with educating children today. School safety, social and emotional wellness, we just talked about it a little while ago, cost of the retiree health insurance, special education mandates, sustainability of teacher unions and negotiating contracts based on cost of living increases, plus steps that we have to have in order to attract quality educators. Funding of charter schools, ELL, English language learners, low-income students. So in summary, we need a new funding formula that will work for every school system and their individual challenges based on their size, their demographics, and the outside strains on finances, as in charter, vocational schools, special education, transportation, etc. Now, you're going to give us some good information, right? You're going to give us some good news that everything's going to be better.
Put the microphone, yeah.
Hogan, except Pat.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's even the perfect height, thank you.
Whoa.
So thank you so much, Mary, and Mary and I spoke this morning, and Representative Hogan and I are happy to come before the school committee. Got to meet Superintendent Rickson just last week at the groundbreaking for the market basket, so Maynard is having some development. But want to thank the Maynard School Committee for having us and appreciate the presentation. You know, I think the first thing I would say is, despite all the challenges Maynard has, what an amazing public education system there is here in Maynard. So I don't have to tell you this, but you should be very proud of the system. And you know, obviously there's financial challenges, and that's what the legislature has been looking at for many years. So I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the Foundation Budget Review Commission. So that was a commission that was created, well, the report came out 5 years ago to implement legislation to address a number of the gaps that Mary, that you just presented on. And so hopefully you know that the Joint Committee on Education last week reported out what's called the Student Opportunity Act. So there were a number of different bills that were filed this session. The bill that perhaps the school committee might be the most familiar with, just because I know certainly a lot of teachers and a lot of school committees were talking about it, was the Promise Act. So I would argue this bill is pretty close to what the Promise Act is. Before I mention that, I did just want to highlight for the cherry sheets for the Maynard school system is that, you know, there certainly was not at all significant increase, but the FY20 Chapter 70 disbursement was a slight increase from last year, but absolutely recognize that it needs to be much more. So FY19 was $5,402,000, and this year it's $5,442,941. So again, not a significant increase, but there was a slight increase. You'll have that on your handout. So that was the first item. And the second part of your handout It's entitled the Top Joint Committee on Education Student Opportunity Act Fact Sheet. So, and my apologies, but I'm going to go through this a little bit very specifically just because it is very detailed. I think the thing I want to emphasize is that, you know, what the Student Opportunity Act is looking to do is looking to update the foundation budget formula, as well as provide additional funding in a couple other areas to provide more education aid for every single school district. You know, we don't have specific numbers, but the idea is over the next 7 years, there'll be a $1.4 billion increase in education spending for all school districts. So that's the big picture, is this would be implemented over the next 7 years. And really, it's important for this school committee, for our constituents, for concerned parents, to hold the legislature accountable for implementing this bill if it becomes law. The formula was largely reflected in the budget, so we've already begun implementing the FBRC recommendations, but the idea is that we would do this consistently for 7 years to get to a $1.4 billion investment. So on the fact sheet, the bill modernizes the K-12 education funding and policy landscape in 4 key areas. So first, it does fully implement the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Commission. So those 4 areas were addressing employee and retiree healthcare costs. So Mary, you had mentioned about rising healthcare costs. So the way that it does that is it says that now the state will provide additional funding to meet healthcare costs for a school district that matches the GIC increase, so sort of the state standard. So that's how one flow of money will come into the Maynard School District. Increasing special education enrollment and cost assumptions, so it's updating the realistic cost of what it takes to educate someone, a child with special needs. This is on the 2nd page of the fact sheet. Increases funding for English language learners. So that's obviously a population that's growing in Maynard. So it increases funding for that, and then addresses the needs of educating high concentrations of students from low-income households by providing additional funding based on the share of low-income students in each district. And I'm sure the committee already knows this, but Maynard does have a higher than average percentage of low-income students. It's 20%, so that is higher than most towns, although it's lower than Hudson. And just as a comparison, Marlborough, which I also represent, 46% of the children are low income. So those are 4 of the areas to implement the Foundation Budget Review Commission. Then there's number 2. So it provides additional state financial support to help public schools and communities deliver a high-quality education to every student. And this is looking to address the costs with addressing social and emotional learning, which is such a greater need to address in our school system in the 21st century. So it does provide some additional funding to support mental health services. It fully funds the charter school tuition reimbursements over the next 3 years. So I think the figure, Mary, that you presented in the spreadsheet was a $933,000 gap. So the idea is that gap would be closed over the next 3 years. I would generally say around charter schools, I'm deeply troubled by how charter schools take such significant funding, usually from less well-off and working class communities. And you know, for my district, in addition to Maynard, it's Hudson, it's Marlborough, it's Ayer, it's Shirley. So I think that we need to take a look at charter schools. This bill, just because it was sort of a political challenge, is not looking to change anything around charter schools. But I know there's a discussion about even just more disclosure. You know, what is the typical student that's going to a charter school? Some charter schools, and I believe this to be true, you know, are finding ways to cherry pick students, and then if a student is not doing well, they're finding ways to quietly send that student back to a traditional public school. So I would like for that to be addressed, but that's not in this bill. The Senate is debating this bill next Thursday, so there will be amendments filed, and I think there will be some amendments around charter schools, but I don't think you're going to see a change in the funding of charter schools because it was just too much of a challenge to put into this bill. But it does fully fund charter tuition reimbursements. So this is still on number 2. And I apologize, I wasn't able to provide handouts to the audience. Expanding the special education circuit breaker by including transportation costs. So do think that that will be very helpful as you're thinking about children that are sent out of district for to receive special education at certain schools, is that transportation costs are now sort of baked into the special education circuit breaker. So I do think that'll be significant. The last item, and this, again, these are statewide changes, is lifting the annual cap on the Mass School Building Authority spending from $600 million to $750 million. It doesn't have to do, obviously, with direct funding for the Maynard School District, but it provides the opportunity for renovations in new schools. I know certainly that's been a concern recently here in Maynard with one of the elementary schools. Number 3, implements policy updates designed to maximize the impact of new funding in improving student outcomes and closing opportunity gaps. So this is a fund that will provide some flexibility. So perhaps Maynard School District says, despite the passage of this law, we're still not getting enough funding. This will be a fund that Maynard could tap to perhaps get additional funding. So that's part of the bill. And then this is the third page of the fact sheet. Identifies education policy areas requiring further analysis. So one of them is the Rural Schools Commission. Now, Maynard's not a rural town, but it has, as Mary said, some characteristics to being a rural community as far as its school population and its size. So there's a commission in the bill to investigate unique challenges facing rural and regional schools with low and declining enrollment. So those are the 4 basic aspects of the Student Opportunity Act. I also provided a question and answer handout. And then just to add a little more detail is that, so you have the 4 areas where, and this isn't in your handout, but you have the 4 areas where the Foundation Budget Review Commission is looking to increase funding. So healthcare costs for teachers, special education, ELL, and low-income children. The bill also has a category around additional education aid, so that is the charter school reimbursement. So, I do think this could lead to hundreds of thousands of dollars more money for the Maynard School District. And then the circuit breaker, including transportation costs, should provide some additional aid as well. But I don't have specific numbers, but it is in the category of hundreds of thousands more dollars. I recognize the school district needs more funding, but this is the bill that's been proposed, and I think probably after Representative Hogan's presentation, happy to take questions, but that's the presentation I have for you, and happy to answer any questions after.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Are we on our timeline?
No,
I'm doing
Doing great.
Unless you want to be.
So good evening, thank you for all of the information that you gave us. We have, or I have been spending, I say we because I mean my staff, have been really looking at this bill to see what's in it for Maynard. I also gave you a brief overview of the FY20 budget, just to review monies that are coming to Maynard this year under the current budget. You have a $60,000 earmark for, we'll call it an amendment, for the Green Meadow Library. Really important, want to make sure books get into the hands of children. We want that to happen. Please let me know if you haven't heard from.
We did.
You did.
We got it. Yep.
Thank you, Kate. We really appreciate the hard work you do.
Yeah, I think we need to take a moment and say thank you for that.
And Jamie is always my partner, and I hope that he thinks I am always his as we go through on projects that we focus on together. There is an increase of $40,000 from Chapter 70. I know that somehow shifts in student population may have changed, feeling that there was any extra money, but there was $40,000 that came in. Also in the special ed circuit breaker this year, we know that the budget commits to a 75% reimbursement rate, so that you should see that should be an increase, a tidy increase for you, I hope, and that the charter school tuition aid, it funds the state charter school reimbursement formula, and we're hoping to begin that this year at 160 and 40. We know that has not changed. That has not changed from 20 to 21. Those reimbursement rates will stay the same. What will be different is that they will actually be funded, which will change sort of everything. So there's no change, and very much a commitment by the Commonwealth to change that the way that we are able to reimburse the charter school at those 3-year rates at the 160 and 40. And so as I look, and this is a complex bill, and sometimes the innuendo, I'm hoping that I'm picking up from each and every section. When you haven't heard the bill in a hearing, when you haven't heard the bill on the floor, it's not quite as clear as it might be, although we've worked closely with leadership and staff. But here are the 5 things I think that are really important for Maynard under the Act relative to educational opportunity. One, the bill modernizes the foundation budget to provide additional resources. So it focuses on closing the achievement gap within every district, which is really the basis of the implementation of the FBRC, as we know. But this includes creating fixed aid categories based on the percentage of economically disadvantaged students in a specific district. So breadth, what that means is we are going to be funding according to each of the district's needs, not against deciles. So we're not going to be competing with Clinton. We're not going to be competing with Boston schools. What our percentage is will become what our percentage is in terms of looking at the new formula, and I feel that that will certainly work in our favor. Again, fully funding the charter school reimbursements. There is a significant gap, and we know that, and provisions both in 20 and now 21, and with this bill, we do commit to critical relief from Maynard at that bottom line, because we know that this is something that we hear about from Maynard just all the time and realize how difficult it is. Comprehensive special ed support commits to 75% reimbursement rate, all instructional and transportation costs. That is going to be key for Maynard. That will be really helpful. It may be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe up to it really is going to get you up in terms of reimbursements. It includes expanding the scope of special education circuit breaker, the $90 million increase. So Maynard has a significant student population requiring high need for special education support, and this scaling up of state contributions to tuition and transportation does mean that you will see more. School building, as Jamie had mentioned so well, the pool of state funds available will simply be bigger. The lines will not be as long. The wait will not take what it takes presently with an infusion of cash as we have it now. God bless the economy, and let us hope it stays as such. And 5, an ongoing review of current formula. This is where we should have and continue to have, even beyond once we have a bill in hand. I think we really can see what we can do to begin having conversations with our state government, with DESE, to say we are in a unique and discrete situation. We're the smallest high school that have been built in the aughts, and it carries with it a lot of responsibility and a lot of financial responsibility. And what is happening is there is the rural, there's going to be the Rural Commission to study rural schools, but also there's a provision that is going to be asking both DESE and the Department of Revenue to look at how each school is funded, and schools that come under a very discrete need or a very discrete composition, and how they could and should be funded. Because as we know, this bill is about meeting the FBRC recommendations. That was what we needed to do. What we tried to do was make sure that everyone shared in monies to each and every school district. But I think for the ongoing review of a current formula through those offices, I think will be critical for our school and for Maynard, because there's a story to be told, and I think certainly with those kinds of eyes on formulas, I know we're going to need to make some changes along the way. The entire rural part of the state needs needs to be able to look, and although you might not think of them as rural schools, probably half the state that would be coming under those auspices. So geographically anyway, mileage. So I think those are the 5. I don't want to go on too long. It's a very long meeting that you all have, but I want to congratulate you all on the work that you've done both this year and last year, moving things forward, letting people know that things are moving forward, and welcome to Mary Jane Rickson. We're so glad to see you and so glad to have you. Congratulations to all the new members of the school committee. I really look forward to working with each and every one of you, Natasha and Lydia in particular. Welcome. We're really glad to see you. So we will take questions, and I guess I'll go, or we can both get up here.
So thank you both very much for all that good news. So now my question is, when are we going to see the money? When does it become final? Are we looking at another 5 years?
If you'll report to your flyer. The front has the
But it is definite.
the FY20 budget snapshot.
Okay.
It has begun this year.
Okay.
It has begun in both what is being reimbursed for healthcare costs and retirement costs too, because remember the burden that is on
Right.
any town that has a decent pension system. So that has already started. The promise of the 100, 60, and 40 has started this year, as well as the 75%. So before we went into the discussions of hanging meat on the bone of this bill and the promise to bring this, this forward, we know that there are already monies coming in. This is going to be implemented in FY 2021. So some of the other recommendations, for instance, transportation costs, special ed, circuit breaker, and transportation costs, those will be in 2021. But we're hoping we will have numbers by then. I mean, this is kind of hot off the press. So we hope we'll have better numbers, at least percentages to give you in order to base it on next year's. I am very well aware, and I think Jamie is very well aware, that people are getting letters that are saying the town really needs to, take a kind of a tough look at next year, that everybody's going to have to get through a tough year in 2021. So we're hoping these numbers are going to come in. It's going to help the school committee work through 2021 and obviously beyond. So.
Yeah, I would just add, so yeah, I agree, is that, so this is really, FY20 was really the first year of the implementation of FBRC. So next year will be the second year, and the idea is that 1.4 billion for Chapter 70 aid will be over the next 7 years, so that'll be fully implemented. So that's the goal, and that's really, what I said earlier, for this school committee, for concerned parents, for constituents, to hold the legislature accountable to keep that funding going each year.
Promising.
I have a question. I know that a lot of the media articles regarding this seem to appear that there was a lot of an agreement from all the political landscape, and I just wanted to kind of gauge how your confidence in the debate for next Thursday might play out, and if there's any, if you feel like there's a lot of pushback in any way that this might not, what's the reality and the success of this happening?
So the bill came to the Senate first, so the Senate will debate it next week. Amendments are due Friday, and so, yeah, I would say the House and Senate, and when the press conference was done, it was the House Chair of the Committee on Education, the Senate Chair, Speaker DeLeo, Senate President Spoka, all sitting in unison for the bill. So the fact that all of these details are in the Student Opportunity Act is very, very encouraging. And I would say, as far as what could happen in the Senate, I'm certainly hearing a lot of concern from a number of my colleagues, again, about charter schools, about how much money is coming out of traditional public schools and going to charter schools. I don't think there will be changes to how charter schools are funded, but I do think there's a push on transparency and, looking at some of the practices of some charter schools. But that's one of my senses, if there's be any change in the Senate side.
That seems to be where a lot of the heated maybe conversations might be around the charter school aspects.
Yep.
Amendment, anyone can add an amendment if you can get the vote in your chamber. So, but if for a bill to come out in this kind of unison has been unique from the last number of years. So that is the indicator of that picture with all of those people there holding hands means that they are meaning business about the bill, about getting the bill passed. There'll be amendments that are added, there are amendments that will be passed, and there'll be plenty of amendments that don't go anywhere. But it's always a conversation. As I say, this is very alive right now. It is not fully formed, but I think you can really begin to look at how you want to plan for 2021 on a lot of this, and we'll be happy to keep you. I can send you a much more in-depth analysis of the bill that I took a look at over the last couple of days to give you an idea of exactly where we are and what the picture looks like.
I was thinking that just the information that you shared here, it'd be nice if we get electronic version, so maybe we could at some point do something like that to the public, and just so they can have a lens of what we've had the conversations tonight.
Yeah,
That'd be
this
great.
information is on the legislature's website already. Just speaking on the Senate side, our Senate President spoke up on the Senate.
Okay.
website, so.
Yeah, so even, yeah, I guess the link, or, yeah, that'd be great.
Yep. We'll send the flyer
I also
uh,
easily.
have a great resource that we got yesterday at NASBO that really breaks it down.
I think that would be really great to share in the community, just so they can kind of
Yeah.
keep a high-level understanding of
Sure.
the conversation.
Did you want to share anything, Michelle? Because
I
I
mean,
know
they
you were
kind of summed
encouraged.
it up. I
Yeah.
think when I went yesterday to MASBO and this was talked about, two of the big things that stuck out to me that I thought would affect Maynard were part of year 5. One was the charter school reimbursement, and the other one was transportation and circuit breaker, because I will say last year for Maynard Public Schools, our transportation versus ed went up significantly. What that means for us too is students that normally we would not be able to claim in circuit breaker because they didn't meet the guidelines of the 4 times the foundation budget, purely due to just their tuition or services they were receiving.
Right.
Now when we add in the transportation, we will have the opportunity to claim those students and those services, and so that's huge for us.
And moving from the decile system
Right,
to,
right.
looking at percentages within each school.
Right.
That is probably the most radical.
It's huge.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
radical. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a radical departure, and I think it's going to help Maynard.
Yeah,
Not in
I
particular,
agree.
maybe other schools even more, but I think for us, because we would have sat around, we have 4 or 5 or something like
Yeah.
that. It's just not quite as we're like 1 or 2 above
We're-
what would have really been some more serious funding, as we saw from Mary's very excellent presentation, and thank you, Mary, for that.
One of the other things that the recalculation of the low-income student too, I think
Yeah.
will actually help us going from the 133% to the 185%. I think that also will affect us because of our low-income numbers. So you pointed out probably exactly what I was thinking, but I did get the same feeling yesterday that within this bill, there are things that will affect us specifically, and that felt good because I feel like we get looped in a lot of times with either the wrong people or, with the wrong people. So I think the way that they've set this up, where you fall into the 12 different categories, and it's based on your percentages and not really comparison data, I think that's huge for us.
I'm glad you mentioned the low-income change, and just to emphasize that to anyone, because I didn't specifically mention that in my presentation, so right now, DESE defines low-income as if a family is at 133% of federal poverty, and now the threshold will be raised to 185%. So that'll capture more students in Maynard than every other school
Yep,
district.
which means more funding.
More funding.
Yep.
We'll do okay from this.
Yes.
There's no bad news in
Right.
this to say, oh gosh, a lot of people are doing well. Maynard is not. I think this has been the labor-intensive reasons for this is because everybody needed to do well. You needed 160 people in the House. You needed 40 legislators in the Senate to say yes, and to be able to go back to their districts and say yes, and we're going to do well, and everyone was determined, and I think that, particularly for our chair, Alice Pye, she just did a remarkable job, both she and Jason, but Alice, particularly over a 5-year or 6-year period, has just done a terrific job, so.
I have a quick question. Can somebody explain the reimbursement formula, the 100, 60, and 40, how that works and what happens after the 3 years?
Over charter schools?
It's saying that by the 3rd year, we will be getting reimbursed 100%.
Oh, okay.
So it's just the
Oh,
build
okay.
up, so you
I
don't
see.
get all of the money in the first year.
I thought it was,
It's-
it
it's
looked
a
like,
way-
right,
the opposite.
right. I thought it was
It's
the
like the
opposite. I
opposite,
thought, like, the first year you're getting 100, the
Oh,
second
no,
year is 60.
no, you're building up
Okay,
to
okay.
100%. It's a
All right.
3-year
Yes.
phase-in plan. for
Okay.
that.
Great,
And then that'll just be steady, so that'll.
right,
Right.
okay. That makes more sense,
Right.
because I was like, what happens in
One
the
of
third
the,
year?
one
or
of the
fourth
other
year?
things that I don't know, Jay Sullivan had actually said this yesterday at NASBO, that also benefits us is with circuit breaker, they froze the foundation budget. So that's big for us too, because you're going to hit 4 times foundation budget easier as long as because they're not constantly raising
Moving
the
the bar.
foundation budget, which they were previously. So that's a benefit to everybody. But he said he didn't know how long they were gonna do that. That was just something that they kind of threw out there.
Well, and also,
so-
when you said GIC costs for healthcare, there are other parts of the bill, and it is a fairly complicated bill, but there are other parts where we're saying, yes, at today's rate of inflation, you will be reimbursed, which will also mean
So it
a little
keeps-
bit more money and not going back to 93 or
Yeah.
2000 or.
So that, I think you answered them one question I had, because I think a prior version, in the Promise Act bill, there was a concern about the foundation budget growing and unintended changes then in what circuit breaker reimbursement would be.
Right.
And- Okay, so that answers that. And then I guess the one, I just really appreciate your being here. This sounds like being hopeful. Good news. So recognizing that this is still very living, what can the community do at this point? You're saying we need to hold the legislature to the next 7 years, but we need to get this thing passed first in a way that continues to consider Maynard and ensuring that Maynard is considered in this last area that you spoke of as far as ongoing review of the current formula in
Yes,
relation
and
to
that's something,
discrete
once
needs.
it's 2021, we see what we have, we see what we need. That's when I think we would begin, and it'd be a great subcommittee, I think, of the school committee or some task force that would be created. And you know, I'm sure Jamie and I would be happy to be liaisons in setting that up so there could be further communication. But that was very positive to me because we're not really rural school. It's why we're so discreet.
Right.
We're not,
We're
we're not
unique.
ex-urban, we're not rural.
We're not
but,
regionalized either, so
You know,
that's
we
the other
also have a
person.
declining population some years, and so, you know, we are discreet in what our needs are, and I think that that is exactly what this other, this other group is going to be looking at what the formulas look like for a town like Maynard would be a perfect example of what they would be doing. So we can definitely stay in touch, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more about all of this.
I hope so.
Yeah, this is very
A
helpful to
healthy
see.
and robust process.
Indeed.
God bless
We're
America.
just grateful that it hasn't, because it stood still for 5 years and nothing was happening, and we're getting further and further behind. The kids are suffering more and more, so just to see this moving faster is a great thing.
And there's been a lot of pressure put on,
Yeah.
and that's always
Rightfully
helped.
so.
I never sign on to anything because I always have to make sure that my district does well, but I was always appreciative of everybody that was putting pressure on everybody to get it done, because that always helps. And I think as we continue through this, everyone knows they need to get it done, and once we do, I think that last, and number 5 that we had talked about would be something important, and once we have an analysis in 2021 of what the exact numbers are going to look like, so.
Yeah.
Are there any sorry.
If I could just add, so I think first of all, the good news, Beth, and to your question is that, you know, I mean, this is the baseline of what the bill is, so I mean, you're not going to see, I don't think you'll see in the center house a retraction in
That's
some
a good point.
areas.
That's a really good point.
That's very good.
I'm skeptical that there will be any major increases, because at the end of the day, this is
Really good.
$1.5 billion,
Yeah.
$1.4 billion. You know, then it gets into, you know, state revenues, and that's why, you know, we're not doing 2.5 billion. But I think, I would say, not to keep on harping on the charter school piece, and you've always provided us a lot of information, but
Yes.
the real specifics about what you would like to see
Yep.
around transparency of charter
Yep.
schools, because again, I
Yep.
hear it from many of my, more working class, smaller communities,
Yeah.
how frustrated they are at how charter schools take so many students from the traditional public schools.
Right. And they have their place, it's just how that dynamic is playing out right now. And
Yes.
it's, yeah, okay. That's very helpful. So I guess then if there aren't any further questions, anything else?
I just had one question about the review, and I know, is there any, beside the municipal level, at the state level, doing like a FBRC, like another one in 5 years or 10 years, or how that, to review, to make sure that, the success of it, how it's measuring on the state level for
There
the
are
act?
measurements baked into the bill itself in terms of achievement. And we're getting, this is a 7-year.
But I want to pick up
Stretch.
on the opportunity that you just talked about, because I think I can speak for myself that we would be very interested in being on a task force after the first year to see, okay, what's working, what's not working, and that kind of thing. So if you want to put that together.
Each and every
Yeah.
one of us has
Yeah.
gone and had our meetings
Right.
and said what needs to happen, and certainly I was able to share, in communities like Maynard that, we have, the formula does not really address the needs. And there are needs, and so describing and letting leadership know what needed to happen, I think was really helpful in ensuring that there were different commissions set up, and this one particularly within DOER and DESE.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks
We
for the
appreciate that.
encouraging news.
Yeah, it's good.
Really, it is.
It's good to be
anything-
alive.
Very exciting.
Very exciting, yeah.
So I do want to mention that I want to respect your time. We have two things that we wanted to get into and want to understand what you might need to do at this point. Just saying that it is 8:05. WABM students are going to do a presentation tonight, and we'd love to have you stay. However, there are also, after that, we are going to do citizens' comments, and I'm thinking that without objection, it might be good to take citizens' comments now in case there might be anyone that would like to just ask you a question while you're here before we get into WABM presentation, then you can stay as you can, or if you needed to head out.
It's a good thought.
Okay.
Mary mentioned it, so.
Yeah, okay, great. We really appreciate that. It's great to highlight what we have to be very proud of too in Maynard, like you were saying, and what we offer.
And
So,
congratulations on the Chapter 74.
Thank you.
And it's
Thank
for
you.
WABM.
Yeah.
The sky's the limit with that. I mean,
Yes.
really and truly, we can
Yeah.
go further than we are already with it, I feel, in looking at opportunities and bringing opportunities to Maynard with that, so.
Yeah, that really match the strengths that we have to offer. It's fantastic.
And that's kudos to Jennifer, because she did an awful lot of work for 2 years in order to put it together.
So then, without objection, I'd like to change the order and take any citizens' comments at this time ahead of the WABM presentation. And in that way, we might be able to field any questions that people might have. And we also have in attendance some Board of Selectmen, we have FinCom.
And we also have another citizens' comments later as well,
We
right?
do,
Yeah.
yep.
For this presentation.
Yep. We thought it'd be good to be able to have it here for anyone that wanted to engage around this in particular, or had any comments to make. Yeah, why don't we see if
Do you
we
have
can.
another microphone? Maybe
Why don't
just-
you come over this way? You can come to the front, join us, have a seat, ask your question.
Thank you. Oh, wow, okay. First off, thank you for coming this evening, and these things that you're sharing with us today just show how well you know our district and what our needs are. I had a specific question on number 3, which is a special education circuit breaker. As a parent of a child with special needs, I can only tell you what a great job Maynard does in making sure that we teach our kids here in a way that they're included, they're integrated in the environment. That's not to say for every school district. I think, without naming names, I think you'll see some more affluent school districts have more of a tendency to outplace. I'd like to see some clarification or ask clarification around the 75% reimbursement rate of special education tuition cost beyond foundation spending. Does that only apply if a student is being outplaced and a bill comes in and we can compare the difference? Or does it also help a school district like Maynard that does a really good job of trying to include the students, spend more resources, hire more staff, and educate within the school district, which of course comes with more cost?
So it does both, because it's, part of the FBRC recommendation is more funding for special education, essentially for, in-district population of students, but then it also is covering, covering more special education, the reimbursement that Representative Hogan talked about, and it's also paying for more transportation.
And
So it's both.
and why it really stays at 75% is when the schools are willing to put some money into special education, we come back with a lot more. So if you're putting a little bit more money into it, we're going to come back with more money for you. So yes, the answer I think is basically yes to your question.
Can I just chime in on that? Really
Yeah.
quickly? So circuit breaker does take into consideration the services that we provide all students. It's done on an individual student basis. The thing with the in-district versus the out-of-district, and what they talked about with the transportation, is the way the formula is set up for circuit breaker. Because you have to spend 4 times the amount of the foundation budget on a student to trigger a reimbursement of whatever you spend over that. So when we're saving our, I don't want to say it like that, I'll take it back. When we're creating programs in district, well, it is, when we're creating programs in district that can address the needs of the students, we are saving ourselves funds. Those may not hit the trigger point to be reimbursed for an individual student. The benefit of the transportation, though, is that even when we have students in district, we still transport students in district. Right. So that may trigger a student that we normally would not be able to claim, that we now can claim those services. So that, it really depends on the cost. It really depends on the cost. And when I say like circuit breakers broken down by each child, I'm not the SPED director, so I don't do it on a regular basis. This is just my knowledge of it. I believe it's by how much time they spend like psychological services, and so I mean it literally breaks down every minute that they spend, even within the district. So, for services, so out of the district and within the district. So.
Great, thank you. I was just reminded I didn't mention my name, Dave Keiger. I think you
Hi,
both of
Dave.
you know me, but thank you.
I was at a wonderful ceremony you were honored at.
So as you come forward, just state your name so that they know who you are. And have a seat.
Hi, I'm Jen Kranek. I also have a special ed student, so I just wanted to come on the tail end of that. I think it's wonderful that you're having a great experience. I think that your special ed student is still in Green Meadow? Yeah. I had a fantastic experience at Green Meadow. At Green Meadow, they throw all the services at you that you could possibly need and more. As your student ages up, they pull back on that, and the experience that you have as a special education parent becomes worse and worse, and that's as you get higher up in grades. My friends who also have special education students, they are the ones who are now being outplaced and going into other districts. So I think the most fascinating thing that I've ever heard anybody say at a school committee meeting is a district that puts more into special ed gets more back. Thank you for saying that. I think that's really important for the people here in the school committee to really take to heart, because the biggest problem that a lot of special education parents had with the whole budget coming up for this year is that one of the first things that gets cut is special ed paraprofessionals. And those are the people that we need in order to keep our students here in district. We need as much support as possible. So please, just as school committee, as superintendent, as administrators, please keep in mind what Ms. Hogan said. A district that puts more into special ed gets more back. Thank you.
And Jen, thank you for your advocacy and the advocacy of all parents, because it is an education for all of us as we move forward in 21st century education where everybody belongs.
It is, I know. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Jessica O'Toole, I'm one of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council co-chairs right now. The first thing I have a couple things to say, but the first thing I wanted to do is thank Senator Eldridge for sponsoring H3911, which is an act to ensure representation of the CPAC on school committees. And my understanding is it's still in committee right now. But I think as a CPAC, we're all hoping it moves forward, because I think the idea for everybody to, if you're not familiar, is to create a seat at the table for a CPAC representative, like a non-voting position, but so that we can have, like, formalize that advisory capacity to the school committee and have more input on as policies are being made and as the budget's being considered, which I think, you know, one of the things you know as a special education parent is you had no idea what you didn't know before that. So I think it's really important to have that there in the moment when those things are being discussed. The other thing I wanted to ask about, I'm hearing some reports from parents at Green Meadow that they're not receiving all their IEP services. And it seems that there may have been an open special education teacher position there. I don't know if it's been filled or if it's still open. I don't know, because first of all, parents didn't receive notification of that, which they are legally supposed to, anytime there's a delay in services. The other reason I don't know that is because I did email the Director of Student Services on Monday, and I never received a response back to explain the situation or to reassure me that parents were going to be notified. So unfortunately today, I actually filed a PRS complaint, Problem Resolution Systems complaint with state to try to get those answers and to make sure that we are notifying parents appropriately and we are making the arrangements to get those services for the kids, because not only is it important for the children, all the kids in the school, for our staff, it's an important part of the parent relationship to be able to trust that you're going to be told this information. It's also a legal liability for us, because if you're not providing FAPE, which is a free and appropriate public education, you're opening yourself up to complaints and to hearings and other legal action. So I guess if you have information on that situation, I would love to hear it.
We do have a special ed kid we hired somebody, but she can't start till the next week. She'll be here.
So she's starting next week. Okay, can you please make sure that that notice goes out to parents? I'm not sure why it did not. Maybe that's something we can look at in the future as a procedure to make sure that these things happen, because it is legally required.
I
All right,
appreciate that.
thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you.
You have a comment to them? You can still come up here because,
That's fine, just a microphone, yeah, just to get it, we can.
That's fine.
My name is Brian Sanders. My question is there a protocol in place for emails being sent to administration? How long it should take for them to respond? I have many parents come, because they know I come to these, asking me to ask the question, because they've sent emails to many people in the administration, and they have not gotten a response in over 10 days.
so I don't think that there's a protocol on amount of time at this point, but we are, we have a communications subcommittee, and we can discuss, so we can start to
Okay.
look at, in that committee, addressing those pathways and turnaround times for
And I
response.
think there is a policy, but I think it's a 5-day, so, but it's response time, where if you have a situation, the one that I read, I don't know the number, but you email to the teacher, and then if you wait, but it's a 5-day. And so I think, because this came up before at a school committee meeting, you know, I think that's a pretty, definitely needs to be review, because I clearly think 5 days for a parent to hear a response, not just acknowledge that you're hearing feedback, is something that should be weighed and considered further.
Okay, and my next question is there was an investigation done, and the parents weren't told what the outcome of it was. Is there going to be any release of the outcome of it to anyone?
Unfortunately, we can't reveal that to parents. It's a personnel issue.
You can't say, okay, so you can't just say, like, the situation was handled, like, no, everyone's in the dark right now with this. Everyone's nervous, they're worried, they don't know what the deal was with it. So,
Unfortunately, we can't, it's a personnel issue.
all right, and the next thing I have is the MCAS scores. If you dig deep into there, fourth grade math, 60% of the kids were below expectations. That's not really, I mean, yeah, overall it's good to the state, but that's putting a false front on it that, and that's what I'm worried about, is that we're putting a false front. Yeah, that we've gone up in other categories, but 60% is below, it's pretty sad.
We are looking at the data, digging down deep into it now. We'll be presenting it within the next school committee meeting.
There's no false front being put on the information. There were some successes that we had related to accountability benchmarks that we've been working on. We are well aware of the areas in which we need to improve as well, and that has been something that I personally have been speaking about to this community for multiple years. So the information that we released were some small successes, some small wins, and some of them were major wins for some of the inclusive practices and some of the data-informed decision-making that we were putting forward. But there is certainly room that we need to have to improve to make sure that all students are able to meet our expectations and gain the skills necessary to be successful. So no one is ignoring any of the data that we need to be looking at.
And that, you said the meeting, we're going to get the presentation at the next one, right?
And my last one is, I know you guys aren't going to want to hear it, but the social media account that we spoke of at the last meeting is still up, and my kid's picture is still on it.
I just checked it this morning. You have it right there?
I do have it right here.
I just looked at it again this morning. I couldn't find it.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Because I'm
So Brian, while you're
Yeah.
looking for that, as far as the results of the
That's-
MCAS, that was part of the teacher contract
It's the official,
of
sorry.
negotiating common planning time,
Official.
right, to work more
that's my kid
intensely
there
with
dancing
the
around.
data.
I mean, there's
That
all
was a
pictures.
component of it. There was a lot of
Yeah,
work put in
because,
at the high school level in particular. We did not have common
Thank you.
planning time over the last year in order to look at writing interventions, particularly interventions for students who are in at-risk categories that showed great dividends. We saw incredible score gains in science practices. The fact that we made substantial progress towards our goals in 2 out of the 3 buildings, and as a district, again, those are not small things to sort of downplay. Those are major successes. We didn't achieve all of our goals. We didn't meet the goals, but we made substantial progress, and the state does not take that lightly. To go from a school at the high school that was designated as needs improvement as a basis of our performance from subgroups to having substantial progress made across the district. But then if you look at those particular subgroups at the high school level, those groups made significant progress, even though last year was the year we were planning for how we were going to implement the turnaround plan. Because of our school improvement goals and the work that we've done over the last 4 years to really align those goals in the professional development work, you saw gains for students, and I don't think that should be undercut. Your teachers work very hard for that.
Exactly, thank you.
So, I appreciate the conversation. I want to, suggest we're going to continue to have a fuller
We will have a formal
presentation,
presentation at the
and that will lay out everything in depth, so that we'll understand
Very in-depth,
and be able to
absolutely.
look at the full picture, and that will be, okay, great, thank you. So, I don't, unless anyone else has particular questions for Jamie or Kate, or comments, then we're going to allow you to say thank you so much for your time, for being here, if you'd like to stay. We are now going to have our presentation by WAVM students, and I would love,
Can I?
sorry.
Kate and Jamie, if you aren't going to be able to stay for the WAVM presentation, I have a letter from a former student who WAVM made a huge impact in his life, and he just wanted to share his experience. I'm going to be reading it, but if you can't stay for the presentation, I have copies of the letter for you.
grabbing paper.
Thank you.
Thanks for your hard work.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Is it the Google Doc? Because I pulled it up on yours. Yeah.
All right, let's see if this clicker works. Our number one investment was the clicker. There we go, okay.
And we'd love if you all could introduce yourselves as
Yes,
well.
we are all CEOs of WVM. We're going to explain more about the structure later on in the presentation. But my name is Pat. That's Owen there, Emily Olson, Zach St. John, and Slal Siddiqui. Yes, so we're very excited to show you and showcase WVM, one of the most unique programs in the country, in my opinion, at Maynard High School. And here's Owen.
I think many people in this room would agree with that. Absolutely.
So what is AVM? WVM is a student-run radio and TV station. It's different from the Chapter 74 vocational program because it is after school, while the Chapter 74 is during school. However, we are taking steps to move it forward to merging the two together to try to get everyone more interconnected and have one working system. So what do we do? So we film a lot of events around the whole town. We do a lot of sports games. We do these meetings. Right now we're actually filming. And we also help out with a lot of other people's things. We provide support. We do PAs, microphones, DJs. We do stuff for the auditorium whenever there's a presentation there. So that, we just help out with anyone that really needs help. And we think that the students take a lot from it. They learn a lot of skills that they can later use on in life if they decide to go into a field that is communications or film, anything like that. So it's really helpful for us, it's really helpful for the people around us, and it's helpful for the students that participate. All right, so what is the history of WAVM? So we first got the radio station in 1974. Then we later got the TV station in 1982. Probably our biggest increase in the whole studio was probably in 2006. We upped our wattage from 10 to 500. I don't really understand that myself, but I can tell 10 to 500 is a lot, so I'm sure that was a big change right there. And then the telethon began in 1978. I'm sure many people know what it is, but for those of you who don't, it's a non-profit event. We collect a bunch of money over a 40-hour live event on the TV and the radio, and we try to get as much money as possible, and then we give it all to the Beacon Santa Fund that supports families that are in need during the holiday season. It's a lot of fun for us. It's a lot of help for the community. It's one of the biggest events of the year. We look forward to it. We start preparing for it months in advance. I think next week is when we officially start all the big preparations. Go around to tons of businesses around the community and the surrounding towns, get donations. We start getting the money, and then we see how much the students can get too. So hopefully we'll rack in a lot this year. No, it's tall.
So I'm going to stand in front of you, I can't really see the screen. So how are we structured? So you can see the hierarchy right here. So you see Mr. Manage is at top, he's like the overlord, and under him are the CEOs that are present, so we're all here. So we're like the highest position a student can be. So we kind of like oversee all the departments, all the managers, whatever happens at AVM, and we do a lot of training too. Underneath us are the general managers, and so they are like the heads of their own departments. So we got a TV operations, remote production, radio, and a PRGM. So we see as we have a diversity of departments in our grasp. So like you can see each one has pretty specific jobs, like editing director, he does all the editing in our YouTube channel and what comes on the TV. Church service director, church services. PSAs, gets the PSAs done. We got the marketing manager, that's all the marketing, like the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, and all that to get out in the community. And like we're a big family, we all love each other, we all help each other learn. It's a really positive learning environment, and by the end of the year, you just made a ton of new friends, and it's just a really great thing. And we got some management teams at the bottom right here, which are led by the managers, but Pat will touch more about that. So the problems we have faced. So the first problem would be the lack of communication. Yes, we're kids, sometimes one thing doesn't get to someone else, maybe someone forgets, maybe it's like an SD card. So yeah, well, we learn to work on the fly. We always have some extra stuff that we can use, maybe some equipment, we don't have it, oh well, someone has it in their car maybe. So we're always ready for anything that hits us. After that is disorganization. We can lose some stuff too. There's so much stuff in the station nowadays, so many small stuff, so much big stuff. The small stuff like an SD card that could get lost, so we usually find it. But sometimes it's like the different mindsets of like one group of CEOs versus the other, and how maybe we sort things. Some things get lost. Maybe this isn't the right place. And in the end, we're all teenagers. We're really busy. We got jobs. We're trying to get into good schools. We have other clubs. We have events. We have fundraisers. It's a busy life. We're trying to make it through, and so far it's going pretty well.
So, what have we done to? Thank you. So our jobs, being CEOs, when we were appointed in May, was to revamp the station, or that was our own goal. We could continue doing the way we were doing things before, but we decided as a group collectively that we were going to change things. And so that's why we're here today. We want to show you everything that we've done over the summer and the past month, and what we have done. So first off, I don't know if you noticed on the job descriptions packet, or not a packet, but the sheets with all the hierarchy, you'll notice that there are 3 main goals for WAVM. It's on the front page, and it has a nice paragraph next to it. Our 3 main goals are inclusivity, performance, and accountability. So those were the 3 main places that we were looking for improvement. So what we have done in the inclusivity section is that we established management teams. So management teams are student-run teams dedicated to a specific function. And so what's so amazing about this is that we have 5 management teams. Our film team, our video editing team, our church service team, our radio supervising team, and our marketing team. They're all led by students in the program. They're all managers. And it's very inclusive because it allows for any of our staff members who aren't managers but want to get more involved in the station to be able to join a group of people with a common goal. So, for example, our filming team is a group of students dedicated to filming events. And so that allows us to bring in so many more people than we ever have thought of before and put them to work, and they get experience out of it. And that helps pursue their 21st century learning environment. We also instituted many forms of communication. The 2 here that we're going to talk about are Google Classroom and an email list. So we have every single staff member, every single parent of the staff member in email list, so we can email blast anyone at any time. Very helpful. Same thing with Google Classroom. Google Classroom is an educational tool that I'm sure you guys know of. Any middle schooler or high schooler will be able to explain what Google Classroom is, but it's a way for teachers and students to connect online. But in this case, we're using it for our own advantage to be able to connect with our students, and we can post announcements and stuff like that. It's very helpful. And How to AVM, which was just handed out to you, that was a sample. It's called Auditorium. So How to AVM was initially thought of over the summer when we were having our planning meetings, and we decided that the best way to pursue a legacy in WAVM was to leave something behind to the people under us. And so we thought the best way to do that was make this book of How to WAVM. And so we sent out to all of our staff, our managers who had experience in each of the fields to come up, to be able to write a tutorial for different specialized tasks. So what you're reading right now is auditorium. It's one of over a dozen different sections of the How to AVM book. And it's not even finished. You'll notice that it's still a work in progress. And that's so amazing because that's probably like 3/4 done. We're going to add to it and then times 12, 13 or so. Any student will be able to learn a task. And that's very, very important to a world that keeps changing, and students are going to be able to learn new skills through that. So inclusivity plus accountability, which this is what we've done. We've redesigned some papers. We've done a lot of clerical work this year, which is great. So you notice that what they're handing out is a program log from our radio department, along with our pre to post production sheet. So the program log is one of many handouts or papers that our radio hosts will have to fill out to meet FCC guidelines, and that keeps everyone in check, specifically our radio department. But the other paper that you have is arguably more important for our TV department, and it allows for, we actually have one, actually no, I don't think we have a sheet over there, but all the events we will have that sheet with them, the pre to post production sheet, and it gets all the footage from point A to point B without loss. And we're teenagers, we've had issues in the past. We had the system last year, we've had some kinks this year where I think we're really getting, we're really, oh no, we're really getting close to nailing that. And we'll talk more about getting footage from point A to point B later. And next up, we implemented performance reviews. So we kind of thought, oh, well, you know, in the real world, when your boss like emails you and is like, meet me in your office, like that's never a good sign. So what we wanted to do was to put kind of some sort of risk involved here. So every week on Fridays after schools, we'll have a department come in for a performance review. The first of the month is TV, and then it goes on to each of the different departments. So every week we're meeting with the department to go over what they've done, the problems that they faced in the past month since their last review, what they want to improve on, what we can do to help them improve it. And so it's really a great system where we can communicate with our managers and see how we can help them in their departments. Lastly, which is this is all internal, except for this last one, the master schedule. This is a public document, and I'll show you it in a second. It's kind of been in the making for years. My freshman year and Talal's sophomore year, we had this idea. It was called Whiteboard, and then it was called like Whiteboard 2.0 and Whiteboard 3.0. It was so, we kept trying to come up with a system to be able to task manage our video editing system, and it failed every time. We'd have a whiteboard, and then it would people would forget to use it, and so that's gone. That's gone. We were replacing it with the master schedule, and this is what it looks like. It is completely color-coded. It is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful.
It is.
Everything.
You seem very organized. I should tell you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That was our goal. That was our goal.
Yes.
So we're doing everything in our power to make this work here. So you'll notice that everything is color-coded here, and then we have color-coding dates. We fixed that. That shouldn't be yellow, but everything's color-coded so we can stay on top of things and get things done. So you'll notice that we are right here, 9/26 school committee. Me and Talal are working it, and these guys will go home. And I set up with Michael Gifford. And then our editor, I think it's probably scheduled by now, but our editing director will then go in and schedule an editor. It'll be exported by the 28th, and then uploaded the 30th. Well, actually, no, there's a weekend, so it might be uploaded Monday or Tuesday. So that's what we're doing. It's completely public. It's on our website. It's under the events tab. You can also access it using wavm.org/schedule. And it'll redirect you to this Google Sheet, and it will be constantly updated as soon as our editors and our filmers and our crew director and everyone, and it's across all departments. We have several tabs for different, so we have the events tab, and we have events archive, and we have our radio supervising schedule. So it's really great. It's going to be amazing. And all of this, in theory, should equal performance. So everything that we've talked about so far, the inclusivity and the accountability goals, mixed with the Basecamp integration, which Talal briefly mentioned earlier. Did you? Yeah. Basecamp we were using last year and the year before. I don't know if any of you are in the professional workplace, but if you're familiar with Slack, anyone Slack? Okay, so we used that for a couple of years. It's a pretty basic business communication tool, and we used that, but it didn't really fit our needs enough. It's very chat-based, and we needed a bit more complexity to it. So we integrated Basecamp, which is fully paid for by Maynard Public Schools. And so we've had a strong connection with the information technology department, so we're able to get that and use that system, and it's very, very great. It helps us communicate internally with our managers. And lastly, we have created, this is an external performance boost as well. The creation, I'm going to skip that for right now. The creation of the work request form, which we've worked with your administration to be able to work with businesses in Maynard, around Maynard, community organizations, anyone who wants to create promotional materials, promotional videos, PSAs, testimonials, tutorials, anything. And they can, we're working on that right now, but it's going to be released very soon, and community organizations will be able to request work from us. And lastly, we've had transparent budget meetings with both our school administration as well as the big administration, and that happens every month, so it's really great to be able to sit down and talk about money, because that's what it comes down to, is money. So, I just want to take a moment and appreciate everyone's work, both on administration and our staff and our amazing CEOs and our amazing general managers and our general staff and our management teams. And I just wanted to mention that our next parent meeting, if anyone's interested, it's called the Friends of WAVM. They meet on the first Tuesday of every month, so the next one will be October 1st, if anyone's interested in going to that. Fundraising-wise, the Friends of WAVM is hosting the Mother-Son Luau, which is taking place tomorrow night at the high school, and that raises money for their organization, which helps support our program as well as scholarships for us as well. And I also, one last thing I just wanted to mention, our website is wavm.org. We have loads of information on there. I highly, highly recommend reading the history section of the website. It's very detailed, but it's very, very interesting. I highly recommend the read. And that's about it. So if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear.
I just want to say thank you first. I think that, I chimed in earlier, you seem very organized tonight. So, but I did have one question about the events that sponsored, and I don't know if you'll have the answer, but I know there's been some feedback. You mentioned the luau about inclusivity. We talked about, you mentioned inclusivity and how some of those events are, for families, and what is a family per se, a father-daughter, and I just wasn't sure if that type of feedback goes to you, and how conversations about the inclusivity of not typical family models, how that might play out at your level.
Yeah, so we had never thought about it until probably a couple of weeks ago when we received an email from several community members about it. It was sent to directly us as well as our management at the station, adult-wise. And so we responded to them and we invited them to the next Friends of WAVM meeting, which is October 1st. And so that's going to be one of the big agenda items there. And I don't know if we want to have a stance until that meeting, but
No, that's great. I just want to,
yeah,
it's really great that the conversation is
yes,
happening.
it's definitely happening, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys. You did a very nice job, very articulate, very well done. I do have a question. I'm very excited about this telethon. When is it typically done?
Yeah, so it'll be the first weekend of December. So it'll be 6th, 7th, and 8th of December. Yep. It'll start at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. Do you know?
Start practicing your routine.
7 or 8. We'll get that information.
Can I get it from my house?
Yeah, so we will, yeah.
Yeah. And share how, I was going to say, share how much you guys have over the years. Is it over 500,000? It's over $1 million?
Over $1 million, yeah. So we're about like 1,100,000 since it started in 78 or so.
That is impressive. Good job.
Impressive, yeah.
Yes, we're very excited. So you can also read about the telethon specifically at wavm.org/telethon. That's our specific telethon site. Has loads of information as well.
Gotcha.
I just want to say thank you, and I am so impressed This is excellent, especially the fact that you guys are doing a handbook. Having worked on The Little Mermaid and doing the sets and whatnot, there were nights when there were no students around, and we would build in the dark because we didn't know how to turn the stage lights on. And it always astounded me that there was no booklet or no resource guide. And I just applaud you for taking the initiation and creating one, and I think it's fabulous, and I'm really, really impressed with your effort.
And I just want to say, I remember when, in 2006, when we were talking about, there was the whole piece about going from 10 watts to 500,
yeah.
right? And I remember at that time, I think it was Mark Manasian, that basically he was receiving, because we had to go through the FCC, I think, in order to do that, and the support of the past WAVM students that are grown now, probably have kids and the whole bit, was amazing across the country. So everything that you guys do, it just carries right through your life. So
Yes. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the 10 to 500 watts is specifically for our radio station, so that just boosts our signal, 50 times, yeah. Yes.
Can I piggyback on Mary's comment with the letter? So I have a letter, when we found out that you guys were going to be presenting, I reached out to an alumni who I know, and he helped me on my campaign, did a lot of the graphic stuff and whatnot. He is a recent Maynard graduate, I think in 2014, and I asked him to write a letter because he just went on and on about how much he loved WAVM. This letter was for Kate and Jamie, and they've left. But anyway, when I moved to Maynard in the 6th grade, the first thing my mother did was sign me up for WAVM. In her attempt to get me to better socialize with the other children, I don't think she could have anticipated the impact the station would have on my time in Maynard or my career path. After spending 6 years at the station and graduating in 2014, I had seen the transition from tape-based production workflows into digital spaces, 6 telethons, countless radio shows, and basketball games, and I also took part in moving the station's equipment into the new Maynard High building. What began as setting up VHS tapes for off-air programming in 2008 turned into truly high-end production equipment by 2014. This access, combined with the atmosphere of being at the station, was just fun. The program gave me an edge when I went on to college and eventually graduate with my degree in film video production in 2018. A key factor in setting WAVM apart from other similar programs is the hierarchy of positions. Having the opportunity to climb that hierarchy and learn what it means to be a leader was a truly unique opportunity. My time in the program taught me how to work alongside people I don't like as well, which my mother assured me would be a recurring theme in my professional career. WAVM is a program that has created a unique and valuable experience for generations. I have a great uncle that was one of the first members of the station in 1974. He went on to fly the Channel 5 helicopter for years before retirement. I'm sure you can ask around the community and find plenty of families who have benefited from the station. A year after graduating from college, I now work full-time at WMUR Channel 9 in Manchester as a digital producer, where I work on a small team managing the website and social media for the newsroom. WAVM set me on this path, and I personally know many of my peers that have found themselves in a more technical or creative field because of their time at the station as well. If you are ever passing by the station, check out the plaque on the wall near the front desk. It has the names of every recipient of the Karen Lee McGillivray Award, which is given to students who have dedicated a substantial part of their high school experience to the station. Each one of those names is someone who is impacted by WAVM and in turn given back to the community through all of those telethons and radio shows. Thank you for your time, James Lally.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Well, thank you.
I just want to say that Patrick actually reached out. They emailed because they wanted to be able to present and highlight such amazing strengths of the school, and they're here all the time, hearing the proceedings, and I think felt that they really wanted to make sure that this was a part of the conversation that was being recognized, and the impact and value that it has, and just recognize the impact and value that you're bringing, being a part of it, because I think to recognize that you're in there each day and you're creating what you're looking for, what you're seeking. And I think that's a very important thing to recognize, and that will serve you extremely well moving forward in your life. And understanding that the very things that you're talking about, that your challenges, I feel like the lack of communication, disorganization, and trying to figure out how to make that all work, that's not unusual. And that continues, and with each group and with each set of individuals in which you're working, you continue to have to figure that out, and setting that groundwork. I mean, you've seen that's some things that we're right now trying to make sure are there and set in place, and so that they create like that foundation for allowing smooth processes moving forward, and that we're not recreating things and working in the dark on the stage and trying to set up the sets. So I just think that's fantastic. I love that you're setting up these work forms so that people could be careful what you ask for. But that's just brilliant.
I would love to, maybe at the end of the year at some point, maybe to get like another report, like how you did with your goals and what the year, with all these new processes that you're implementing and the skills that you guys are developing, how that impacted, or how you felt you achieved, or what things that maybe you needed to shift and realign a bit. So I don't know if you'd be open for that, but I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be fantastic.
And also how you're passing all this information down to the next set of CEOs.
Yeah, it'd be useful for everyone, I think, to understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we're just teenagers. You're doing a lot.
I do want to mention, they do have a nice Maynard Mint little video they sent out every week, so if you get a chance to look at that, that's always great.
Yeah, so that's one of the things where that's in school and we're after school.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
What I think is important in terms of that capacity that you referenced is that one of the things we're doing, and that puts Maynard, the reason we were able to consider applying for a Chapter 74 program is because of the work over the decades through the after-school component, the hierarchy of the structure that was created. You were saying we're only teenagers, but these are the things that teenagers need to be able to know and do, so that when those teenagers are adults, they are doing those things. And I think one of the things that we hear from the workforce often when we talk about education is that people in the workforce don't have the organizational management, the executive functioning, the task management skills that you all are generating. So when we're talking about the integration of the work that is happening after school to what's happening during the school day, it is because of the work that you all put in and those who came before you that is allowing for us to now have a program that is going to create further industry recognized credentials that will allow students to have jobs like the letter that you just read and beyond. And so I can't thank you enough for the collaboration that you have shown with myself, with Stephen Woysick, our technology director, Principal Karajanis, as we've been moving this forward. They ask really thoughtful questions, and I'm so excited to see the next iterations of all of the work that you are doing to make sure that this is robust and productive and is even more of a centerpiece of Maynard Public Schools than it already is. I don't think that we often talk about how WAVM is cable access for the town of Maynard. So Littleton has Littleton cable access. Other towns have their cable access. Our students are running cable access for the town of Maynard. And that is something that we need to be capitalizing on in some ways to make sure that these kids are getting the credit that they deserve, the recognition that they deserve, not just from standing up here and us saying thank you, but from employers and from colleges and all of those pieces. And that's something that I'm hopeful that we can continue to promote and do.
You guys are really, life skills, is really how all of the things that you're talking about will certainly, I work at a university, and I wish they had more students at that level come in as well prepared and organized and experienced in working in the field of understanding hierarchy and, working with a peer that maybe you do not necessarily get with, that's just part of life, life needs. And so I really just appreciate all the sharing and what you're learning and how you're passing that on to new classes and new students each year, so.
Speaking of sharing, do you mind sharing the PowerPoint? Great.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. So we are going to move into the Aspet Valley Collaborative Board Member recommendation. And is that from you?
Yeah, there's a motion in there.
Okay.
As a superintendent, we belong to two collaboratives, the Assabet Valley Collaborative and the CASE Collaborative. And as a sending school committee for students for each of those towns, we have to appoint a board member, and typically is a superintendent. So there's just two motions to be part of that board to make very, very similar to the school board for each of those towns. Each of those collaboratives. So there should be, somebody should have motions in their package.
I think that's what Colleen,
Yeah.
part of her,
Colleen
yes.
gave
So I don't know if everyone got it. Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. Here we go. Yep.
Somebody want to make a motion?
There's something in their package about
Yep,
what
here we go. Here's
they are.
Oh, do we just read it?
Yep.
Yes. I'll make a motion to nominate Mary Jane Rickson as the Maynard representative to the Assabet Valley Board of Directors.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have a question about it. So,
I'm still learning about it, so I may not know. all
yeah,
the-
no, because I know that some districts, their director of student services is the representative, and so I just wanted to understand a distinction. Is it this way, is it expected that it's always a superintendent?
It is.
I know it's historically been that way for Maynard, okay.
No, I talked to, the person from CASE and in the Assabet Valley came in all superintendents.
Okay, and so the role of I'm just wondering, when you represent, you will come back, is it like sharing
Yeah, we would have
with the
board
director
meetings
of the
and we can
superintendent?
share, I can share the information that we come up with as far as budgeting and things like that. I'll do share outs as well.
Okay, because I know like cases are kind of expanding more and no presence here, so I just wanted to understand that process.
As soon as I know more, I will get, but I did have there is a training, but the Department of Ed's website is down on the training, but they said to go ahead and vote, and I just got something from the Department of Ed yesterday. They'll let us know when it's up, and then I will give you that information as I get it.
Well, that's all I have.
And if I remember correctly, don't they do, and you may not, maybe it's for us, do they every year, it seems like we see this report, like an audit at the end
right,
of
exactly.
every year that we have extensive discussion about of everything that's happened, for both CASE and Assabet.
They'll send an annual report of some kind, yeah.
So it's just an
Which is
annual?
very informative.
It's just an annual, like there's not periodic, or is that just, I guess we would hear about it? if there's
So
any-
generally speaking, Mary Jane as the superintendent and your district representative will attend board of directors meetings, and at which point, if there is information that she needs to bring back to you as a community, she can do it at that point. But in terms of communication specifically from the collaborative, they generally do their annual presentation in the same way that Assabet Valley Technical High School does those pieces. But you will be getting periodic updates if there's something that, as the board discusses and makes a decision on, Mary Jane needs you to weigh in on.
Okay. 'Cause I know that case has kind of evolved a little bit with like the schools and how they've done this year, so I just was curious on how.
Yeah,
I would suggest that also if there's specific information that you're looking for, if you could let us know, and then we can reach out and get that information. So if there's specific questions that you have, certainly, sorry.
Oh,
sorry.
Just ask that you all speak into the microphones because we can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Just start yelling, sorry.
If there are specific questions, certainly let us know, and Ms. Rickson can reach out to the collaborative to get some of those answers, because they would not necessarily all be discussed at board of director meetings.
Okay, thank you.
And just to tag onto that then, we might want to update the schedule of content to be covered in each school committee meeting to include in the annual reports, and I think those come out
Good point.
at the end of the, like May? Is it May that they would come out?
I think it was me.
So in May?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking of, just thinking of the WAVM. I mean, that this is a year, so I'm kind of taking notes of what things we might want to incorporate or tweak. I know like the CPAC thing we're moving, so next year we may have a revision of that.
Absolutely. That was a living document.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're holding the space for us.
Yeah.
So, any further discussion? Okay, then vote all in favor. Okay. So next we move on to, the next one is the CASE Collaborative Board Member Recommendation.
Yep.
And I'll entertain a motion there.
I'll make a motion to nominate Mary Jane Rickson as the Maynard rep
I'll
to the
second.
CASE Collaborative Board of Directors. Okay.
Any discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor? Great. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to move into student activities.
I'll let Michelle talk about that.
And if you could just speak into the microphone, Michelle.
Sure. This is just a, what do you call it? Formality, I guess you say. We had our external student activity audit this past year. One of the things that came up is that we need a yearly approval of all student activity accounts by the school committee. So this is just us presenting the student activity accounts for your approval.
I just want to ask a quick question. You had mentioned at some point, and I can't remember when, that collecting the activity fees is somewhat of a challenge.
These are two different things.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, so, no, yeah, activity fees, yes, is a challenge. Collecting them, and we can talk about that at a different time if you would like. This is the student activity accounts within the high school and Fowler. These accounts are representative of the groups that the students contribute to and run. So it's like, sophomore class student activity, or nature's classroom, or I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head. I think you guys have the list.
We have girls basketball, girls soccer at the Maynard High School, music trip, musical, National Honor Society, Fowler play, yearbook. So
Yes.
that gives some
Yeah.
sense of what this
We're
is.
voting, we don't have to vote on the amounts of the
Nope,
accounts?
you don't have to, it's just the approval that the existence of the student activity accounts. Yep.
Okay.
And those accounts are run by the principals of the school.
Principals are the custodian of the accounts. They work in, the principals work in conjunction with the treasurer at the town.
So we're voting for the creation of these accounts? is
They're
that what
already
it is?
created. It's literally
Just
just
a
an
yearly-
approval that you know that they exist and that you allow them to continue. That's really all it is.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the 2019-2020 Fowler Middle School student activity accounts.
You can also include
And
the
also
Maynard.
the Maynard High School
Yes.
accounts in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 47.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so appreciate your explaining that to us, and we'll now be aware of that for next year. And you may need to explain it
As
again
will
if we've
I.
forgotten it. So we're going to move into the superintendent search, and I am going to hand it over to Lydia. Lydia, very good.
Okay, so update on status. We are, the letter inviting candidates to apply has gone out. We are now in the process of creating the focus groups. And we need to vote and accept on the demographics of those focus groups, among other things. So I have scheduled meetings or sessions for Tuesday, October 15th at the Maynard Public Library between 3 and 6:30. The first session will be for teachers, paras, ABAs, support staff, and any other people who weren't able to attend other meetings at other times. The second is for parents and any other community members who wish to join. Do you want me to read out all of them, or do we want to vote on this like by day, by session, by
The whole thing.
the whole thing?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we could start there if
And
there
we
was
make a good
anything.
discussion.
All right. Thursday, October 17th, from 8 until noon, there will be 2 sessions held at the Fowler Assembly Hall. The first, 8 to 9:30 a.m., is parents and other community members. We tried to do a morning session and an evening session to accommodate people's work schedules. And then from 10:30 to noon will be central office administration and building administration. Then at Maynard High School, from 1 to 2, we will be holding a session with the high school students. And finally, from 3 to 4:30 at Town Hall in room 101, we will be holding a session for town officials and employees and Maynard business owners. And obviously, all residents are welcome and encouraged to participate in these focus group sessions. And if you can't make it to the one that's specifically designated for your demographic group, you're welcome to attend others. So,
I had a question. I'm looking back at my notes, and I'm sorry, can everybody hear me? Okay. Looking back at my notes, and there was a pointed comment, I remember when NESDEC met with us about making sure that staff and admin have their own, where there's not school committee presence there.
yeah, school committee isn't necessarily involved in all of these.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's explicit, so just so there's conversations that can be freely had.
Right. And that, when we post the notices, we can add that language.
Okay. And the other thing, and this is more for Mary Jane, I didn't see any of the information posted on the timeline on the website, and I don't know if there's.
Well, we have to approve it.
We have to
No, the
approve.
timeline.
Yeah, the timeline needs to be updated.
Denise, right.
It's not current.
I will put it onto the website, but it needs to be updated.
Yeah, we have to get the updated version from Art and Carolyn, and we couldn't update it until we approved these groups and the schedule.
Because we're about a week delayed by having.
Actually,
this
2.
vote. 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's already outdated, so it has to be updated.
Yeah, and that does bring me to the next thing, that we can first do this, and then we'll talk further about that process.
So I want to make a motion that we accept the schedule, as Lydia has so put so much hard work into orchestrating it.
I second.
Any discussion? I guess just to say thank you, I know that there was a lot to figure out. We had discussed, for people to know, we had discussed constituency groups, both at the recommendation of NESDEC, and then we've had some discussion beforehand, and was also shared via email, so that we all were able to review and make sure that we felt that those were appropriate groups. And so we're very grateful for the work that you put in.
Looks
All
great.
in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Mary.
So in terms of the focus groups, so that being in order, the other item that was the constituencies for screening committees?
There are a couple of other things that we need to discuss.
Great,
Yes, so this.
absolutely,
The screening committee, the constituency groups that we wanted represented on that screening committee. And I don't know, do you want me to read what I have put together? Okay, so per the suggestions provided by NESDEC, I propose that the following constituencies be represented on the screening committee. And we need to determine what those constituencies are and also how they will come to be on the committee. I think in some cases, the groups themselves should appoint a representative, and in other instances, we should solicit letters of interest, and then we review and select from those letters of interest. Just because, like, say for parents, what are we going to ask the entire town to get together and pick a representative? That's not really,
Maybe like a PTO, though? Would they be, like, would we engage, like, established parent groups that,
I mean,
don't know, I'm just
yes, we
thinking it
could
might
do
be-
it that way, but I would like to extend the offer to people who don't normally get involved, who might otherwise be interested. I didn't want to narrow it down to just the same people who are always involved in these things. And not to say that it can't be a PTO group or a PTO member, just I wanted to open it up to, perhaps, because one of the constituency groups that I would like to have represented is English language learners, and we don't have a group for English language learners, so perhaps a parent who comes from.
I know Charles is.
We do actually
Yeah,
have a group,
yeah.
MEL community group, which has a community member, and I believe.
Yep,
We do have an English learner group that has a community member representative, and I believe parent representatives. That meets monthly, but I'm sure we could organize something.
Is that
more
what
quickly.
Charles is?
Charles is the co-chair, along with Karen Murphy, who is our middle school, or 4 through 8 English learner teacher.
When you say have people submit information, and then we, as a group, would
The school
decide?
committee would
So does
review.
that mean that we're pushing out our timeline further?
Well, no, because on it, in terms of screening committee selection, outreach is supposed to be in September. I've pushed it to October just because we're behind, but it doesn't mean, like, if we approve this tonight, I can start tomorrow.
I see, okay.
So, and outreach is just basically sending out the letters of either explaining, and I can read it to you. This is a draft. As I'm sure you're already, wait, is this the one? Yes. As I'm sure you're already aware, the Maynard School Committee has launched its search for a new district superintendent. The position is being advertised in various relevant and strategic media outlets, and letters inviting candidates to submit their resumes have been mailed to select individuals. Application submissions will be collected until October 28th, at which time the review process will begin. In an effort to involve as many stakeholders as possible in the process of selecting and hiring the best person to fill one of the most important paid positions in our town, the school committee is calling for volunteers to represent the major constituencies of our district on the superintendent screening committee. The constituencies that we have identified are, to be determined, I didn't fill that in. The duration of the commitment will be short but intense and will include attending workshops, reviewing applications, interviewing candidates, and selecting finalists. The tentative timeline for this segment of the search is October 28th through November 25th. Everyone on the screening committee must be able to make themselves available for all events, day or evening. Specific dates and times have yet to be confirmed. If you are interested in being on the superintendent screening committee and feel that you would be a valuable contributor, please email your contact information, reason the school committee should consider you, of which constituencies you are a member. Ideal candidates will represent more than one group, and a brief background profile to me and my email address. Again, this is a letter that we, Mary and I, would be sending out to various groups as.
Would we be able to send like an email like from the school
Yep,
committee?
yep.
I mean, I know that might, I don't know if that's, and maybe.
Okay, but if we include the school committee, then that gets us into a situation where we're going to have to discuss everything and we're going to have to vote, and so.
They already impede the process.
Yes, yeah. So so it wouldn't necessarily be this letter to everybody, but it's something similar to this, just.
So maybe tonight we just vote on the constituencies and then.
Right, yeah, no, I was just giving this to you as an example of how we would reach out to people to submit their names or their interest.
So I do just want to ask one thing. I'm just going back to my notes from the NESDEC training and what they recommended, so I'd just love to understand your rationale for how you're choosing to do this. I just helpful to hear.
Yeah.
I honestly don't feel like I have, just good to hear. So they said, the things that you said, 10 to 15 people who wear more than one hat. They did say, ask the constituency group to pick the person, balance, which you're looking at. I don't know if I saw technology expertise. That was one thing that they suggested. Budget, communication, technology expertise.
I
But
have it here if you want to.
yeah, okay, great. And then they had asked administrators to pick administrators 3 spots for school committee to choose specific people. So it sounds like you're choosing a different route than what they had recommended, which I
This
just
is
want to understand.
recommendation, and I just, through my conversations with Carolyn.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to tailor it to our community, because obviously we know our community better than they do. But I can certainly follow this as written if
That's not what I was asking.
Okay.
I was just trying to understand where you were coming from and what you were thinking.
And you do have it here, the second to the last paragraph, it says constituents to select their own representatives, teachers, support staff, public officials, CPAC, Maynard Business Alliance. I'm not sure why we have that category in there, in the school committee, which we're.
Well, because one of the things they recommended was having someone a business person from the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
So.
So I think they basically, just like with the letter, they provide like a basic template, and then you personalize it. And it sounds like you've personalized it to Maynard from your choice, and so I get it.
Okay, great.
So do you want me to read the constituency groups and?
Yeah, why don't
How
we
many?
read them, and then we can take the vote, unless there's, and then even in the midst of the vote, we could do further discussion if that's needed.
Okay. So I have 1 from central office, 1 principal, 1 teacher from each school, 1 support staff, 1 public official, 1 CPAC, 1 ELL, 1 senior citizen, and I've included 4 parents, 1 from each school and 1 from out of district, because I think that that's an important voice for us to have. 1 from Maynard Business Alliance, 1 student, either current or alumni, and then 2 school committee members. And that, yes, totals to 18. The caveat being that we will be choosing people that cover more than 1 constituency group, so that we can reduce that number down to 13.
Right, so you may like have an out-of-district and
Which is why in my letter I asked them to say which constituency groups they can represent, because that way people who check multiple boxes are more likely to be appointed than someone who just says, oh, I feel like it.
All right.
And then how they're selected, or how they select their representative, that also can be discussed and voted on, but should we vote on the groups themselves first and then?
the support staff, it's 1 total, not 1 from each building, right?
No, 1.
And ELL, that would be an ELL parent, or?
I was hoping for a parent, but again, I don't know enough of the community to know how to, engage. I know personally some ELL parents and students that I could talk to encourage to, want to do this, but I think that if Charles Gabron has a group going and has access to people who might be interested, that's fine too.
So it could be maybe like an ELL student? Possibly?
Yeah, it could be an ELL student.
So parent or student possibly would be?
I was kind of, I think if it's a parent, that could knock, take 2 birds with 1 stone, because it'd be a parent from one of the schools and the ELL parent.
And for student, you have current or alumni?
Or alumni. That is up for discussion. That's why I put it in parentheses.
I would like to see a current student.
Current?
So that, yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept Lydia's template of the makeup of the superintendent screening committee with the one change of the students being, the student being current versus alumni.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All right, yeah?
All in favor?
Wait,
Sorry.
no?
No, no, go.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, very good. So then, in terms of
So
the
now what? Yeah, now what?
constituencies who are select their representative versus are selected by letters of interest.
Okay. And I can also explain my rationalization behind these if you'd like. So constituencies to select their own representatives, teachers, support staff, public officials, CPAC, Maynard Business Alliance, and the school committee. And that was because these are concrete groups that, that know among themselves who the leaders are, who would best be, would best represent them. And if, obviously the teachers, it would be a group from GM, a group from Fowler, a group from the high school. It wouldn't be like all of the teachers together picking 3. So there'd be one from each building. The constituency representatives that will be selected from letters of interest, central office, and I did this, central office and principal, and I did this because I know that they have a lot on their plate, and at least central office, and I didn't want anyone to feel pressure to have to do it if everyone else in the office said, no, we really need you, we really need you. Like, I would want someone who actually really wanted. Again, we don't have to do it that way. For the principals, because there has been some interest in the past, I didn't want to put anyone in an odd position of having to say, oh no, I'm actually applying for this position, so I can't be on it, on the screening committee. So I thought that we could choose from the people who are actually interested in that way. We could avoid uncomfortable conversations. And then the ELL, only because I didn't realize that there was a group that we could contact. Senior citizens, because I know that there are several different senior citizen groups out there, but I don't know if there are people who aren't necessarily a part of those groups that would like to be considered. And then the same with parents and students. Just, these are sort of broad, undefined groups that I would rather just have express their interest.
The only thing I'd worry about someone falling into multiple buckets is that the idea of having broad is from different lenses, and so I don't know, if you'd have one person who meets, if it takes away from the screening, from sharing different perspectives, or if that adds, I don't know. But-
Okay, so then we should revisit the constituency groups.
No, I like the group, but just having, like, maybe say, you limit, like, if you have 2 or you don't want someone, so if you have someone could be parent and maybe a business alliance, but also, I don't know, CPAC member, how many, is it better, or?
But we're still going to have 13.
Yeah.
Right, so, because this has 18, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, we'd just be eliminating 5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, I put 18 just because I want these constituencies represented in these amounts, but
It could.
having 18 is far too many. In fact, yeah, even 15 is too many. She recommended 11 to 13. So I think if we can reduce it to 13, that will expedite the process and also give more opportunity for each person on the screening committee to actually actively be involved and ask questions. And
So the only one that I think I'd like to have as far as the constituents selecting their own representatives is central office. I know your thought
okay.
process, but I think collectively they can talk and
Okay.
figure out, it's me personally.
Okay.
But other than
yeah,
that.
my reasoning behind the central office and the principal constituency groups was just merely avoiding uncomfortable conversations. So we can easily change that.
Are you guys comfortable with that, with the central office?
Whichever way you
Okay.
feel is better,
All right.
absolutely.
So, I mean, my opinion, I really feel that a finance, I really would like Michelle, and, Jennifer on it specifically, so I don't know how it's defined, but I feel like, having that particular part of, the finance piece is really, I think Michelle speaks to it probably better than many, so I think the business manager as one of
That's the one person that Caroline, that's not on her list. And
The business manager?
Yeah. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's considered a conflict of interest for some reason, or...
Are you applying for the superintendent? I'm just kidding.
Well, no. In terms of, I don't know, in terms of salary negotiations, I'm not sure. I don't know. I just know that it's not on here. And they actually suggest assistant superintendent as the best. And so I was, that would be Jen or Charles, if Charles were willing and able.
Yeah, Charles.
But if you think that we should have both, then we need to go back and revisit the numbers, because they suggested only one from central office. They didn't,
So I think we should define who the central office person is. I just think because of,
So what we could do is get rid of the Maynard Business Alliance, because the finance, I was thinking, but they're residents, but not necessarily business.
do we know if Michelle wants to do this?
It's like the
Willing
one.
to do anything,
Yeah, that
as
would
you have
be,
noticed.
that would be the weakest link to me. Nothing against the businesses, but that would be the
Okay.
one that if I were to get rid of any of them and maybe replace it with 2 central office people, for instance.
Okay, so in order to go back and renegotiate the constituency groups, do we need to make a motion to go back and reconsider?
I think you can rescind.
Rescind the previous?
So what do you have to do?
Did you vote to approve the constituency groups?
We did.
By the numbers? What was the particular
no, we voted
motion?
just to approve we did by the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We did enter the.
So you would make a motion,
To reconsider?
yeah.
Can you stop the tape and rewind?
Hold on,
that part.
there's
Let me actually look it up, because I don't
Can
want
you
you
look
to
in
do
the
it
Roberts,
wrong.
there's a thing in the,
Yeah, but I think you have to
Yes.
reopen it, reconsider.
You can just take that motion off the table.
No, because it was
We voted. Yeah, we voted.
So,
But Mary just
You
said we could.
actually voted on to simply the change
Right.
of student.
I didn't think you voted on it.
So
Yeah,
the
with
template has the
that
numbers
template
on
has
it.
the numbers.
So I would suggest that someone make a motion to reconsider.
What about amending?
You can't amend because it's closed, so you have to open it
Okay.
first. So the
Yeah.
motion to reconsider
Yeah.
would open it, and then you can make an amendment
At town
to the
hall, at
motion.
town meeting again.
That I want that job. I love that.
The
I
rescinding?
love- Yeah, I'll be the town moderator.
I'd like to make a
Love
motion
Robert's Rules
to
stuff.
rescind our vote on the superintendent screening committee template. Is that all I do? then
and
we
open
vote
it
on
up for, open again for.
Open it for
I
modification.
second it.
To reconsider, not to rescind, to
Oh,
reconsider.
to reconsider, okay.
And I second that motion.
All in
Discussion,
favor,
all in
yes.
favor?
All in favor, okay. Now,
Okay.
So 5-0.
In favor to,
So now it's open, and someone can make an amendment to the motion to say,
we want
to adjust the central office number to 2, if that's how you want to do it, or if you want to
and
add
to delete the
another
Maynard Business
constituency.
Alliance, right. So I'll make a motion to accept the superintendent screening committee with the change of having 2 central office people and deleting the Maynard Business Alliance. still having it be as 18, and also having it again as the current student.
Do we need to clarify that that second central office person needs to be Michelle?
Well, we can, part of the defining the constituencies further, we write that the second part, which you were talking about afterwards, sorry, when we said that will be letters
can't
of
hear you.
interest.
Oh.
Well, we can
Right,
send.
right. I know, that's why I did it the way I did it.
So do we say we can, like, they can send them letters of interest, right? We can define who we're sending the central office letters of
Okay, but
interest.
if the whole point of changing it from 1 to 2 is to make sure we get Jen and Michelle, then we should just specifically name them.
Okay, well, that's,
I think that's probably clear, more clear.
Yes, that would be great.
But we haven't asked them yet.
I know. Well, they're both sitting there, they're not saying no.
In an open
Yes.
public meeting that is recorded for all
I guess I
posterity.
could delete my application, no, I'm just kidding. I was not planning on.
well, I think knowing that they participated in the interim
Right.
search, and they were
Very
willing.
But we had
willing-
all building, like all administration, all school officials were part of that. That wasn't like the broader community.
No, for the central office, they were particularly on the screening.
Right.
Charles
For
was
the
too.
interim, right?
Charles was there
Yeah.
also, yeah.
So I definitely feel that Michelle particularly, that she should, that finance lens is critical to this. So for me, having the business manager, whether it's Jennifer or Charles, I don't have, super strong feelings. I don't know what Charles's availability is, and that would be my concern.
Right.
To consider more.
With all the other things that he does.
Right, and that he's not a full, his availability is very limited. So that is something I just want to clarify. It's not that I don't think that, I want to make sure that we're considering that aspect. Because we haven't talked to him about that, and his role in the interim search was also, he participated, but I know it was very difficult and a lot of time consuming for him. And this is very clear, the amount of time would be needed would be
Yeah.
quite a lot.
Which is
Michelle,
why
you have
I
a
would
vacation
want to.
schedule? Maybe we should confirm your vacation schedule also.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's leave it that we're going to, it's very clear what the consideration would be. I think we should vote for, instead of continuing the conversation now, there's more to be figured out, but if we want to move it to 2 central office, we vote with that reconfiguration.
Okay, because I need to start sending the letters out, which is why
And
we
then-
need to decide
yes.
this tonight.
Well, and also then, you can follow up to ensure, recognizing that we have consideration for who we would like those 2 central office people to be. And then voting with that to then be followed up upon to ensure that we can
After we.
honor that. We wouldn't do any vote, we vote on what is here without naming specifically, so they can follow up and make sure what will work out. And then, knowing that we've had this discussion, then they make sure that that will work out. And if it doesn't, then you all will work out a second plan in relation to the 2 central office people.
So we're voting to change it to 2, leaving it open.
And also changing the category of constituency representatives to be selected from letters of interest, changing the central office up to the next paragraph, that they select their own representatives.
Yep. Well,
So-
or we select,
So that's going to be the second part of this. Let's start with the first part.
Yeah, okay.
So the first part was the constituency groups. And so, as I understand it, and then I'm willing to entertain a motion, we would remove Maynard Business Alliance. We would,
I believe you already have a motion on the table.
did somebody already make that
I
motion?
believe Mary made the motion to
Did you?
remove Business Alliance and change it to 2, and the debate was, I don't know that you have a second, though.
No, we don't have a second.
Okay.
So do I hear a second on?
Second.
And you're clear what you're seconding?
Yeah,
Because you made a motion to change it to 2
to
central.
2 central office, eliminate Maynard Business Alliance, and current student.
The current, right.
Great. So you just seconded?
I'm seconding.
And any further discussion? Okay, then we are going to vote all in favor. Very good.
5-0.
Thank you. All right, now let's move down to the constituencies that are selecting their own representatives versus those that are selecting from letters of interest. As of right now, the discussion has been that there will be, central office would move into the category of selecting their own representatives, not by letter of interest, but that we have clear interest in who is selected and would like to.
Should we also move ELL to that category as well?
Yeah, based on your your rationale for who we choose, there seems to be a group to reach out to that could pick a representative.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion in relation to the constituencies selected by their own representatives and those that will be selected from letters of interest.
And we need to eliminate Maynard Business Alliance from that as well.
Right. I'll make that motion.
So we're all getting tired. So could you just be clear in what your motion is?
All right, okay, I'm motioning to have the constituencies to select their own representatives be teachers, support staff, public officials, CPAC, ELL, school committee, and central office.
Great.
And then constituency representatives that will be selected from letters of interest will be the principal, senior citizen, parents, and student. And I also want to reiterate that the central office piece would be thrilled to have Michelle as a finance person, and either Jennifer or Charles, whoever would like to fill that slot, so.
All right.
I'll second.
Great. Any discussion?
I just had a question about the school committees to select their own representative. We've already
We already
defined
did
that.
that. Yeah.
right?
That's a moot point,
So should we remove that from there? Because I don't want us to set up, we have to vote again
We can do that.
for selecting constituents, because we've already done that.
Well, we've done it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
So anything?
Should we take it out?
I just don't, it's voting on it again, it just seems like we're opening up for another.
Oh, I don't
vote.
think we need to vote on it
Right.
again? It's kind of a step.
No, we can select them. It's not about a vote per se, so we're okay.
Yeah.
It's just putting in that category. All right.
Okay, all in favor?
No,
All in favor? Okay.
Is that 5-0?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was fun.
4.5, I don't know.
These changes.
Thank you.
Yes.
They're going up
Yeah.
at different times.
Okay, so you said that there were a few other things, Lydia, that you needed to go over as well in relation to the search?
Do we want
Just-
to talk about the survey, or do we need to talk
The
about the survey?
survey, that was the last thing. So the survey is ready to go. I have the link, except I've lost it. And we just need to determine when we want it to go live, and it will be taken down October 21st at noon. So,
That's the link for.
that's the link for the survey,
Okay.
for anyone can access.
Right here, yeah.
It's the public.
Yep, the public, in case they can't make it to any of the focus group meetings.
And they can still do it even if they do go to the focus group meetings,
Sure.
correct? Okay, just to clarify. And so this is what we would have on our website?
This would be, yes, this would be, the link would be on the Maynard School website. And we could also email the link out to people if we so chose.
Yeah, we would definitely do that.
Probably put it in the principal newsletters.
Right.
A couple of times, yeah, to tell them.
Well, when does it become live?
Well, we have to choose.
Oh.
So
But
it,
didn't they suggest?
Said the 11th, they
where's
suggest
the
the
survey?
11th.
October 11th?
Yep, and it closes on noon
Oh,
time
okay.
at October 21st.
Because, yeah, because they
So 10
said
days.
to do it after the
Right.
focus groups are done.
okay, oh, okay, well, because the focus groups are late, that's why we can't start it when the focus groups are done. It's got to run simultaneously with the focus groups.
Fine.
Yep, so she said it's ready to go, and we can start it whenever we want. So I guess it just depends on,
Finding a place for it first. I think we need to get the home for all the superintendent search information.
okay, so who should be in charge of, because I don't have access to the
I can be
website.
I just need the documents.
Okay,
And then once I have them,
okay,
I can
so
put them
I
in.
will be in touch with Jen.
Yeah.
Because it's the letter that was sent out, right? All of those little elements that that was last time.
Okay, so with that understanding, you get the documents to Jen, then we just need to decide by when exactly where that's going to be open, which I would imagine we could open and then,
What she recommended, the 11th to the 21st.
is that what she recommended?
That is what she recommended, because we are a couple of weeks late in this whole process, and Jen keeps telling us that we want to be ahead of everybody else looking for superintendent versus in the mix with everybody,
Right.
so.
Okay.
So the survey will be October 11th through the 21st. It will be active, available for the public.
Is that something you need to vote on, or you just wanted to get our input?
I don't think we need to vote on that.
I don't think we
you do.
need to vote on
Yeah,
it, but,
very
I mean,
Just so everybody
great.
understands, yeah.
Right. And then, so leading up to that, and then you'll coordinate with Jennifer, so we can get a communication out to the public beforehand to let them know.
right.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll, compose it like I've composed the letters to invite people to the focus groups and invite people to,
We've actually got those. They sent, Carolyn had sent press the template.
yeah, and I was doing it so that it had our
Perfect.
logo.
Yep.
I just,
Now that she knows how to do
Now that she knows how to do
I
it.
see that.
I do it all the
Well,
time.
actually, I was looking, I was like, oh, is this Lydia, or was this professionally done? So I just wanted to tell you that your skills are really top-notch.
I won't tell you how many hours it took for me to figure out how to do it. And it's the only thing I know how to do.
All worth it.
Yes, thank you. And just so we can set like a loose timeline, could we say that this information would be available to the public maybe by the end of next week?
Sure.
Is that something, okay.
Yeah,
Just
I
so-
mean, provided that I get an updated
Yeah.
copy of what Bethlyn has in her hand from Art and Carolyn. But yeah, I don't foresee any issues with them. I told her that we would be voting tonight on all this stuff, and that I would get all the information to her tomorrow morning, and then we would.
Great.
So I do have a request then that, I think we are in danger of process interrupting with timeline, and that we should try to make sure whatever we can do where if we have comments, that things, where NESDEC is saying a vote is not required, that we start with, that we try to do whoever is putting out the suggested recommendation, that we feed back our comments to one person, and that we try to do it that way as opposed to having to wait to do a vote. That could
Oh,
hold
I
the
thought that
process.
wasn't allowed, that's why I didn't do it that way.
So well, that's what I'm saying. If NESDEC said
Clarification.
there are certain things upon which they were surprised that we needed a vote, and
Right.
that literally held up the process, right? Then I think that it would be really good to make sure we get their guidance on, because they do this all the time with all different school committees, on when and they would need a vote. And obviously, if it turns out we have some differences that we need to work out and discuss, we then would just have to, we would have to do that, either hold a special meeting where we do that, or wait until the next meeting. But if they're saying that there are generally processes that just, they do along this timeline that do not require, so that's one thing. It would be great if you could clarify with them as we move forward and
Okay.
let us know.
Okay.
And then the process, if they know the standard, I imagine the standard process is more along the lines of what we do when we don't take a vote, which is the one person's the keeper, everyone funnels information to that person, and then they take it into account and create the final that gets sent out for one final look at by people.
Yeah, because I think I was confused as well, because my notes from when they came out to us, I put in here, decide makeup of screening committee by 9/26 at school committee meeting.
But that's screening committee, that's not the focus group.
No, but that's why we talk about this constituencies, those
Yeah.
are part of the screening committee, right?
Right.
That's why I thought we did need a vote of that as well.
We need a vote for that, but not for the focus groups.
Yeah.
What held up.
But that's what was held up, because there was confusion around that, and,
I think defining the focus groups,
right, but that wasn't necessary, that was, yeah.
yeah.
Pretty much are what they are, yeah, but that's okay, we're moving on. Should be fine.
Well, and just to be clear, if there was something that we did, that it turns out there was, if people felt like there was a need for a vote, there are 5 standing members. It's just, one, balancing that against the timeline and the recognition that we are in we want to be in the best possible position, so that means being able to get out ahead of the curve, which we have in our favor at this moment in time still, right? So being able to have that available to us, not curtailing process, but clearly there's a lot of process to this that has a lot of involvement of the town. But if we needed to, we could try to hold a special meeting. Like if that's what we needed to do, despite the fact that NESDEC may suggest not having a vote, if we felt that way, that we still needed it, that's fully within every school committee member's right to consider that. So I do want to make sure that that's clear.
Is the cutoff date for the 21st for the survey, is that pushed out from the original?
No, I don't think so.
A little bit, just a few days.
Is it?
They had said until the 17th, so that's.
Oh, that's right.
not-
Yeah.
Not a big deal. That wasn't a big deal.
Great.
So we're
fine,
could
we're good.
still,
We're good, because I think it says define the focus groups ahead by mid-September, so we're not hugely off. But I think, yeah, right. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Mary.
yes,
Thank you. Anything else in relation to that search at the moment?
Nope.
Okay. One other question I had, NESDEC had said they could come out and present. Is there a particular time that would be good for them to do that?
Present at a school committee meeting?
Yeah. the
Whenever, we
process.
just need to ask them.
Okay. Okay. So maybe we should look at the next two and see.
Do you want me to add that to the rolling agenda topic
Yeah, that'd be great.
thingers and then?
Yeah, do you want to ask them, like, from those dates, which maybe might be...
There's the 10th and the
Yeah.
26th.
Yeah.
See if one of those would work.
Yeah, see if one of those might work for them.
It might work, I was going to say, one of the days that they're going to be in town anyway for the focus groups, does that fall on a school?
The
So why don't, take a look and see.
Yeah, we will, we'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
great,
Sounds
thank you.
good.
And just add it to whatever.
So you can just say.
Okay,
We'll work.
excellent. So, appreciate that. We have next is Nature's Classroom Field Trip. It's October 7th through 11th, and all field trips, we need to take a vote in relation to...
Overnight field trips.
Well, overnight field trips, thank you.
Overnight.
Yeah, not all field trips, that would be a lot of field trips. So, we have here, we can entertain a motion in relation to that field trip. It's, again, a formality that the school committee has to approve every
I'll
overnight
make a
field
motion to
trip.
approve Fowler School's grade 7 overnight field trip to Nature's Classroom in Groton, Mass. from October 7th to the 11th, 2019.
I second.
Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, and next on the agenda is the Green Meadow update. So I did, neither Josh nor Megan could be here tonight. I just see Dave is here. So I first wanted to discuss what's come up in relation to moving forward for the envelope study. There came to our attention that the RFQ that was going out was only that would allow the request for qualifications that allows them to interview people in relation for the roof study, allows them to interview people in relation to the envelope study, so that RFQ is the first step. So then they could interview folks for their qualifications and then accept bids. So in relation to that, it came to our attention they were only looking at, in order to try to move forward, recognizing that time was of the essence, the RFQ that was being put out ended up being just the pre-K and K, knowing that there was an issue with the pre-K and that clearly needs to be addressed.
For the roof only, not an envelope study.
So, yes, so what they were considering, what they had at the time was just the K and pre-K. And what we would like to, but what had been voted upon by the Board of Selectmen had been for the full envelope study. So that is what is currently on the plate of the town administrator, lacking facilities directors to try to make that RFQ happen with a full envelope study. The tricky part is kind of like, that's not necessarily in that town administrator's wheelhouse. So, and we do not have a facilities manager at this time. And so one possible way to try to make that manageable in looking at time was to turn the full envelope study into roof, because if you include in that technical content expertise that needs to be managed in relation to that RFQ and those interviews, if you include the windows and the outside of the building, that's additional elements, the foundation, as opposed to the roof is like, so if we do the full roof, that's more of a
Critical.
one. And that includes the downspouts and the gutters, so you are getting those pieces in there as well if we did the roof. I have a letter from Josh that I wanted to read, that I had open. There you go. Could you have it? Oh, thank you. All right. So this is from Josh because he could not be here tonight when we were discussing how this could work as a vote here. I know there's been a lot of discussion regarding the Green Meadow RFQ and approach to the roof project. I understand the goal was to complete a full envelope study to include the roof, windows, doors, walls, foundation, fascia, gutters, and downspouts. The priority is clearly the roof, with the worst section being the preschool roof. I fully support the current RFQ being advertised as soon as possible, with the analysis focusing on the entire roof. I feel the deliverables should be the roof analysis, recommended options for construction with cost estimates, plans, and specifications for the option we choose, and construction administration. Depending on what is found, the theory of focusing on the worst section of the roof first makes total sense. We will likely need the support of the voters to fund the roof construction, which, in my opinion, will require a clear picture of the condition of the entire roof so that we all know the magnitude of the issue and the potential total cost. The roof analysis will naturally include the fascia, gutters, and downspouts, as they are all part of the total roof system. I did not see indication of water infiltration through the walls, windows, doors, and foundations, so making that analysis a second step after the roof is addressed is appropriate in my opinion. On a separate note, the Green Meadow Future Committee is a body appointed by the school committee. Our charge is to analyze the conditions and capital improvement needs at Green Meadow, make recommendations, develop strategic plans for the future, and report back to the school committee. Although we want to encourage teachers to come to us with any and all concerns, thoughts, and suggestions, we also want to make sure that our committee does not circumvent the reporting structure with the Maynard Public School District. I want to make sure that if staff is reporting concerns to the GMFC, they are also reporting these concerns to their supervisors such that issues are addressed as soon as possible. So the second piece is something that we can continue to talk through and look forward as we look for making sure that the operations on the school side are in place to be able to address and manage the concerns, and I think that that's an important conversation to continue. Right now, in the first paragraph, I think that
That's the vote part.
that's what we would need to vote on. The consideration being this allows us to move forward, and as he states, not foregoing the other considerations and analysis, but including those as a second step after the roof is addressed, knowing that this is of a time-sensitive nature and we need to be able to move forward. So that is the consideration on the table. If we decided to vote to have that envelope study, have the RFQ be for the entire roof and not a full envelope study, then whatever the outcome of that vote would be, that could then, the Board of Selectmen is having a meeting on Tuesday and could vote upon that, which then allows Greg to have further direction if there is any in relation to the RFQ. Right now, he has to go with the direction that he has, which just is going to be more complicated for him to be able to create. And
it's also going to take much longer.
And it's also much more expensive too, so, yeah.
So
We don't know that.
So
It's going to be more expensive, we don't know how much more.
So that's what's currently on the table. And is there anything else that you want to add representing the Meadow Future Committee?
Several other topics, but on this particular topic, I think the key part is, if you look back the last two Board of Selectmen meetings, there is ambiguity around what is the ask? Is the whole roof, is partially the roof, is the envelope? What is the ask? Where it really got stuck on was how we're going to pay for this once the RFP goes out, bids come in. I think Greg was very clear, as Chief Procurement Officer, he needs to have money in hand to award the bid to somebody. So I think right now, with your vote to support what's being proposed, clarity will be on what the scope is. I think the Board of Selectmen was pointing back to our committee to identify where the $50,000 needs to come from to fund actually doing this research. That's clearly not upon us to push for and to find $50,000, because We don't have it, I don't think you have it either. So I just want to encourage you to vote in favor of making sure this RFP happens, but also making sure that it actually gets funded, because I'm personally concerned that that's where there's still going to be a holdup. It's not the complexity of getting this RFP posted. It's not. It is the holdup of how we're going to pay for it.
I think we're voting on the RFQ, though, tonight, not the RFP. And the RFQ doesn't,
Correct, it doesn't obligate you. No, I 100% agree, I'm sorry I misspoke. So, we'll post it, but very quickly it is. We get 3 bids
that's the very
back,
next thing.
And now it is, one is for 35, one is for 40, one is for 42. I'd like to award it as Greg. Somebody needs to give me money. And that has been the open question for months, and there doesn't seem to be coming traction on this.
I think that'll definitely be a budget subcommittee conversation.
it was last
It
night.
was last night.
Great.
I'd also like just to clarify that the RFQ being proposed in the original piece was looking at the entirety of the roof. It was just in different components. So just for clarity's sake for folks who are watching, that the RFQ we're considering is the same one that had been proposed previously in looking at that roof. So I think that's an important piece to look.
So the
think about.
RFQ from before, was the full building envelope study though,
No,
right?
it was not. It was never the full building envelope study. What it was is prioritization of different sections of the roof so that we would be able to get information in a much faster way in order to potentially remedy any issues, particularly over the preschool wing, as we know that that is an area of concern. So it was simply a piece looking at and having many options for the folks who were submitting the RFQ.
It was in phases, so that we could use one RFQ to get, because people, not necessarily the person who is going to be examining the roof would be examining the walls and the windows. So we wanted to make it broad enough so that we could just do one RFQ, get it done, but make it clear that this was going to be in phases. Was that your understanding, Mary?
No, hold on. Yeah,
That wasn't what it was. It was,
This is what we discussed last night.
That's the way Greg worded it last night.
It's
it was in, if it was in, I don't know why I keep saying if it was. No, it was in different phases according to the roof. It wasn't in phases, it was in prioritization of the different parts of the roof.
Right, but then,
So encompassing the whole roof, but prioritizing, looking at the preschool wing and the kindergarten wing first. And then, based on their bids, if we could move on to the other pieces of the roof.
So I know that Greg sent us an email of a fancy picture of what areas the RFQ would go out for, that he, as
It was
a,
3 different sections.
right, and it was not the full roof. It was only for the pre-K.
right, and that's
wing.
because Greg misunderstood. And
But that's what
he
he
explained that last night.
No, in those
Okay.
pictures, it was the 3, it said like A, B, C, so it was 3 different sections, if you look at that diagram.
Okay, I don't have it up in front of me, but I remember, and I know looking at the meeting from the Board of Selectmen from last week, how he explained it to them also was that it was for the pre-K
Right.
RFQ. So I
It was to prioritize getting information about the pre-K wing, and the only reason I think that this is important is because part of the issue that we have been having over this particular project is multiple iterations of going back and forth between different committees where people are making public statements about what is or what is not happening that is not necessarily based off of the information that's being presented. And it's with the best of intentions. Just having sat through the summer where Michelle and I were sort of being asked why we weren't doing what the Green Meadow Future Committee and other folks had recommended in April for the Green Meadow roof. I think it's incredibly important that people understand the RFQ that is going forward is asking for information about the Green Meadow roof, and that was what was presented previously.
So what Mary Jane just showed the picture, she had it up, and the graphic is not the full roof, from what he shared to us last week. So I think there may be other parallel conversations. I know what the picture he said to us is not, it's missing like the third grade, all that piece.
Missing the hill.
Right, it's only for, so I just want to clarify, so for us tonight, what we need to do is decide and vote on that, and if there is some redundancy, then possibly, but I think we need to define, it's the full roof, we are in agreement, we have a vote for that, if that's what everybody feels is necessary. But we had some conversations because the information we were provided did not appear to be that way as of last week. And watching the Board of Selectmen meeting, that was also very unclear amongst their conversations.
Which is why they pulled it.
Right, right.
So I think everybody's looking for more clarity.
Right, and I
So-
think hearing the community is the full roof RFQ goes out, the scope of once that happens, and how the information comes back, and how you synthesize the need for repair and whatever, that can be in different projects. But the full roof will be, my understanding, is what we are asking to get surveyed, not the full building.
Right, not the envelope study.
Not the envelope, which is also equally important aspects, but we don't want to delay the process of opening up the school for next year because of the full, because of other aspects which are not as critical, which is the full roof.
So I think that clearly, based on conversation here, and based on the fact that when the BOS clearly initially voted for a full envelope study. So recognizing that, and that that's all that Greg could go off of, no matter what he may be trying to do, if we can officially clarify that we would like to see that this, and for right now, that there's an RFQ that goes out to look at the entire roof, and that is the extent of that RFQ, and that that would provide options and priorities for work that could be done, and it is only information. And I would also, then we would immediately suggest that the budget subcommittee would be figuring out where that money would be coming from just for the survey itself. So that's my suggestion, so.
That's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion that we request an RFQ of the Board of Selectmen, I guess, to do a study on the full roof of Green Meadow Elementary School. Is that the way it should be worded?
With the priority of
the
pre-K.
Of the pre-K?
K wing,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, with that added language, Colleen?
So but the full roof looks at everything though, right?
It looks at everything, but they look at that first.
That's the...
Correct. And Lydia, I think what you're saying is, we know we have an issue, an identified issue based on the report that you received with the pre-K wing. So we do the full roof, but let's get the information first on the pre-K. So we know
Exactly.
we have to start working on that.
Because if we need to start working in June, it means that we've got to back up, and we need to get money from the town in, when was the meeting that,
Well...
May or May?
No, that we could...
no,
We could do
last
early.
night when we were talking,
February?
I can't remember,
That
but,
we talked about
but we talked about the timeline, and so in order to make it by the November, was it November 6th deadline for,
Oh, yes, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think that was, yeah.
anyway,
Yes,
so
it's
yes,
not
so we
prolonged
need,
anymore.
exactly, we need to get that part done, but inevitably, the entire roof needs to be done. And then pending that finding, we move on to the rest of the building.
Correct, but just to clarify, we need to do the whole roof, because we all know it needs to be replaced. For us to know what the cost is going to be, we need to have it on the whole roof in order to know what needs to go into the budget. So while, and I personally, but Josh may know this better, I don't think we need to clarify priority is for this, because that almost comes across as, if you don't go along with whole roof, well, we might just take the priority section. We need to do the whole roof.
Right.
So if we post it, the bids come in, we accept, we can then say, please start with this part.
So just the way I
What,
worded it.
what they asked last night at the budget subcommittee was, they just want guidance, because there's been so much miscommunication and misunderstanding about what needed to be done, which parts needed to be done first, and so they wanted clear direction from the school committee, and then they will go forward.
So maybe this is the one clarified sentence then is, we need to understand the integrity, the issues across the whole roof, understand what the costs are to remedy, knowing that the pre-K section, we already know, needs to be addressed as soon as possible.
It actually says in his thing, just to clarify, just because.
In whose thing?
In Greg's initial RFQ was perform architectural, engineering, building envelope studies at the Green Meadow to recommend roofing repairs or replacement, was his actual scope of work.
See, that's the. Well, I know, that's not in any email that was sent to us, and I'm reading through, just to clarify.
This is his actual thing.
This is the document.
This
that
is the
was going to be
document that
submitted
was.
On websites or on the bid pieces that the companies were responding to.
Right.
So this is the document.
This was his actual RFQ.
For clarity, that is the document that people would be responding to.
And I appreciate you trying to clarify that. I don't have that information,
Sure.
okay? And
Yeah.
so what I'm trying to say is that my discussions and my conversations and my understanding are based on, one, an email that Jennifer, you shared and brought awareness to us on the 13th, where there was some concern about the RFQ scope.
No.
Please let me finish.
That's not what my email said.
It appears there's some misinformation about the RFQ.
Correct.
Okay, and it goes on, okay.
Right.
So there was
The
some,
misinformation was what was said at a public meeting, not what was in the
Okay.
document.
all right. And so, but there was a awareness that was brought up, that there was a concern. And then Greg went on to share, and his words were that due to constraints in time and budget and personnel, the scope of the RFQ was reduced to focus on the immediate needs. And he said the current RFQ focuses on the roof over the pre-K classrooms.
That's a
So that was his-
priority.
That was his wording, and that's
Yeah,
all I
okay.
had information
I
on.
can understand that, but just in
And we
looking
have
at
a
the doc.
picture that only, in the picture he sent to accompany that, was just that. So I understand you have information, I don't
There
have
were
it.
other people who had that information as well, who participated in public meetings. What I think is important is that the scope of work that is identified here is the scope of work that you are asking to have done. So perhaps that could be the motion.
Except for he said that he amended that RFQ, and that's why he pulled it. He admitted last night that he had changed it to just be the pre-K and K-wing. And
I think he, and that's perfectly fine, like.
So let's,
What
okay,
you're-
regardless of what happened, we're just gonna
Right.
go forward.
Right.
We're gonna vote on what we have a recommendation for.
Right.
I think we have a motion on the table for that. Is there any more discussion that needs to
I
be?
don't
needs to be
think
seconded.
It has to be seconded, but,
Oh, second.
so are we not including the priority for the,
We're just
Right,
saying
so
the
that's
roof
where I
study.
think,
The roof study.
that's
Roof
that's
study.
where I think, if you just say
Just
the
say the
entire
roof
roof
study.
or whatever.
And not say envelope, because they've got two separate connotations, just say
Right,
full.
it's an interpretation problem.
It is.
right?
I think it's a.
So we need a
And I
second.
know there's a lot of concern about other aspects of the roof, and just the full roof is what we are
Correct.
asking.
Yeah.
So I'll second.
So let's make sure that Colleen feels like the motion is clear. Can you read what you've got in there at the moment?
Motion request RFQ of Board of Selectmen to do a study on the full roof of the Green Meadow Elementary School with a priority of the pre-KK roof. That's what the motion was.
Okay, so would you like to amend that
Yeah,
motion?
let me amend it to take away with the priority of the pre-K, K-wing.
All right.
Second.
Do we have to second that again?
Don't we have to second the amendment?
Okay, second again.
Any further discussion? Though I would like to just, just say that we will want to then immediately move into, like, as the process of this, along with it would be immediately looking within the budget subcommittee on where the funding would come from for that study.
My understanding from last night was that they wanted specific direction from us, and they wanted us to direct them in what the phases would be.
Of money, of fund budget?
In the progress of, so we do the full roof, we request an RFQ for the full roof, but they want it done in phases. That was my understanding last night. So.
But that's not part of the RFQ.
That's the part that we were saying is already part of this
Right.
RFQ. He asked for a full RFQ, and do you want me to read that part? Because I think what you're
That would
saying
be
is what
helpful.
this.
Yeah, because
That
I
would be
don't
helpful.
have, can you share that document?
Sure, hold on
Please.
one second. So,
Lydia, can I ask one clarifying question, though?
Yeah.
When they say they'd like to see it in phases, is it because there's a sense of urgency of, hey, you know what, pre-K, we need to address.
Right.
Right.
We want to get that learning quick.
Yes,
And we can get the other learning later.
right. So,
I think you can execute that simply when you award a contract and say, we're
That's
giving it
exactly
to
what
you,
that's,
start here, give us the
that's
learning.
exactly what this
and
says.
keep going.
That's exactly what this says.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Okay.
So it basically says, we want to take a look at the whole roof, but we want you to break it down, the costs, into the different sections of roof so that we can prioritize where we spend our funds in doing it. That's literally, in layman terms, how this is described.
Okay.
The request for qualifications is just merely a company saying they can provide the services. They can provide the analyst,
And that's what we voted
analyst
on
part of
already. That's what
services.
you just
Right.
said.
And how much?
We haven't voted on
How much?
And for how much it will
Right,
cost.
right.
That's,
So
that's all it is.
You don't ask for it broken down, and you won't get it
But
broken
if,
down. You will get it
correct.
in its
So I think his
Okay.
clarification to
But we
break
don't-
it down wasn't to discredit seeing the whole roof. That was the, his urgency to get a quick number broken down for the pre-K wing so that we could
Got it.
address that first. That's my understanding.
That was my
I've read
understanding.
through many RFQs, but I am in no way an expert to it. The only reason that there was concern before, when it came to this, it was actually a conversation between me and Jen, because I had a conversation with Greg on the phone, wasn't that I thought his RFQ didn't meet what we were looking for. What it was because I had this information before, which I understand people didn't. The night of the school committee meeting, both Josh and Beth Lynn had said the RFQ was for a full envelope study.
Right, and that's what the
And
BOS voted
that's
on,
where
so
the
we had
commu-
no other
Right,
information in
so
that.
that's where the confusion was. That's where the confusion was, not a confusion about what he was asking for, that it was that it wasn't going to look at the entire roof. It was that it wasn't going to look at the entire building envelope study. And that's what you had said that night. So I was like, whoa, wait a minute here. If we're saying, oh, it's for the whole envelope study, and then it comes back for just the roof, then the public would say, well, you told me it was the whole envelope study, and then we would be backtracking, explaining why we only had done the roof. So that was what the concern was about. It wasn't, like, this is very clear and meets all the needs of what we're looking for.
Except it uses that word envelope, so that needs to be deleted. So if we even just reiterated the motion, but just take away that word envelope, because that's,
Perform architectural engineer building envelope study services at the Green Meadow
I think because.
Elementary School to recommend roofing
said that,
repairs or
okay.
replacement.
Can you share that document,
Sure.
please? 'Cause I think that's the other part, is I'm not seeing, having that,
Right.
Right, and how he represented it in an email was that it was just for the
yeah, and how
Pre-K.
he also represented it in their public meeting was also,
And how he
Sure, I-
represented it last night.
so.
Well, what you're saying is exactly what this
Right,
says.
right.
So I'm assuming, I don't know.
No, what he said last night was that it wasn't for the whole roof, that his RFQ that he had written was just for the pre-KK wing.
he said he changed it.
Yeah.
So he didn't do that.
He changed it in the interest
He
of
just
time,
changed, right, he thought he was doing the right thing by addressing the piece that needed the attention.
which is why it got pulled.
Right, which is where all the confusion
know
is.
that either, so.
Okay.
All right, so
I
now
just-
we're at a
maybe
place, we're gonna just say full roof, RFQ, and then I think maybe at some point you can work with Greg to, once that happens, and keep us updated if there's anywhere that we
I
need to.
believe what Lydia was saying, however, is that the Board of Selectmen is looking for you to give recommendation on how they would like to, on the study of the RFQ, what those different sections would be, so that when the RFQ comes back with the cost, it will say, to look at the entire roof is this amount. To look at it in parts, preschool wing, this wing, that wing, would be these amounts. I believe that that's what you were saying.
No.
What
No.
was the sections they were looking for?
The sections, so they want the RFQ to cover the entire roof.
Yeah.
What they want is
the RFQ to address phases, and the phase one would be the roof. And the priority of phase one would be the pre-KK section. And then phase two would be reviewing the documents and deciding what work needs to be done. And they also want to address the rest of the building. And with the one RFQ, I think they were looking for people to submit their qualifications for doing the roof and for doing the rest of the building, rather than have to go through this again and submit a second RFQ. But
So I'm not sure exactly, I'm not a building person, but you send out RFQ, what we voted on is the RFQ, right? I'm sorry, I don't know if we still need this, a lot of people left. Is the RFQ. The scope of how the survey is prioritized, I don't think that's really for us to, I mean, we want the whole roof looked at, and I don't know how long a survey takes.
so the point that Josh and Greg made last night is that sometimes you will get a better bid or a better estimate from people if they know that there's like a bigger project at hand.
Right.
If we just send out for just the roof, and then, someone said, well, I don't want to do just the roof, but then if they know that there's a second bid that could possibly happen, then they might say, oh, well, and then they would bid for both.
You mean like for the envelope later?
Right. So that's why they wanted to include both in the RFQ, both the roof and the rest of the envelope, but prioritized by phases. So phase one would be just the roof, phase two would be the rest of the building.
Isn't that defining the scope, and we don't even, we're not even there yet, right? We're just getting the,
So the request for qualifications, you're trying to get people to come in and interview and say, hey, I could do this.
Right.
That's it.
And
Right.
so.
right, I
guess
feel
what
like we're
they're
getting
saying-
so granular right now that we're.
Well, I think what they're saying is if we're looking at timeline and you want people to come in, then if they understand that there could be another piece to this that they could look at.
It does
And-
say that in here as well. Gives the opportunity for additional.
Sounds like we just need to reiterate what our vote was. and
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
full roof and an
Yeah.
It sounds like
opportunity.
that's exactly what
Yeah.
we need to do, because we said it right the first time.
Yeah.
The other concern is-
Thank you for
I
saying
would
that,
like to
Michelle.
go back to the tape of the Board of Selectmen meeting when we said the full envelope study, because that's not, that's.
No, that's the word that is messing us all up.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a full envelope
Yeah,
study.
yeah.
I will-
And
that
that's
is
what the DOS
100%
vote-
clear.
did vote on, from what I
This is not a full
understood.
envelope study.
Just a roof study.
This is focusing on the entire roof with the priority of the
Yep,
pre-K.
and so then we do need to have a new vote, because that is the vote that was taken on the table, was a full envelope study.
Right,
That's
right,
what the
right,
RFQ needed to address.
Yeah, so it says base bid, pre-kindergarten classrooms, roofing, add alternate kindergarten classes, adjoining hallway, main entrance, cafeteria hallway, office space roofings, add alternate to gymnasium and library hallway.
Okay, well
Hold
then,
on, I'm just reading over the RFQ that Michelle just sent over, just to see. Since we're voting on this.
I'm gonna look at the chair.
Yeah, it would have been good to have this. This is pretty big. I don't think we're going to be able to digest all this.
no, I think that what we need to do is,
I think your main,
I think that you
Vote.
understand, we understand what we're doing in our main vote,
Yeah.
and then we can allow you all to work to, because I think we're very clear now what we're
Yeah.
asking for. And so we make that vote, and then we allow the operations people to make that happen. So I think that's what we need to do.
Make the vote that I did, or the vote that's already there that we're going to reiterate?
No, I think the vote that you did.
Okay, the one about the roof.
Yeah, I think
The
what you
motion
had
is
said
already-
earlier.
Yeah, so,
The
and you
motion's
second.
already on the table and second.
All right, so all in
Yes.
favor?
Wait a minute.
Discussion?
So the motion that's on the table right now
Discussion, I'm gonna,
is we request the RFQ of the Board of Selectmen to, yeah, wait a minute, shorthand, to do a study on the full roof at Green Meadow Elementary School.
The original is
Period.
Yeah,
yeah.
period, and then, but the
Yes.
amendment that's on the table right now was amend motion to remove wording with the priority of pre-K roof.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And just to make sure that we're not getting punted again on Tuesday, the phases. I'm hearing you say they want to hear phases. There's two types of ways to look at this, right? The Board of Selectmen might want to understand, here's the building company, tell me when you respond, how much it's going to cost for you to look at this, and this. So they will know how much it's going to cost just to look at it. And by the way, when we select you, give us your cost estimate for
Yes.
this versus this versus this. Right? I mean, and I'm just trying to make this as granular as possible because otherwise it's just going to get
You're
punted
right.
again.
Yep.
What is the easy way to just put that in?
That's, I
It's
don't
not
want to keep
prioritization,
reading
but
it.
it's
That's
just-
how this is already written. How
Well,
you're
the way you're
describing,
describing is the whole roof, right?
so
But the way that it has it.
the
has
way that it
different
has it is,
projects.
as the different
Then that's great.
alternatives
Then
is
that's
how
great.
it's already
It has
written.
the
So it asks them to submit both the cost
Correct.
estimate by section to come and look,
Yeah,
and we can afterwards tell them, if we select you, we want you as output,
Correct.
give you cost by. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Well,
yeah.
then that
Because
should
the
satisfy
part of
everybody.
this RFQ too is that the ability of them to provide a report
Yep.
with different alternatives for the roof in different sections of the roof as well, so.
Great,
Yep.
perfect.
So I think we should refer to that particular RFQ
Right.
as
that's
our
what I was just
reference
thinking.
point as
Yeah.
part of our vote, because
Well, I mean, I haven't had a chance to really look over it a lot. I mean, we just got it. So I'm kind of a little bit frustrated that not having had opportunity to really read
I
it,
don't
to be able to
think we
include it
need
as
to
part
vote
of-
on that RFQ. We just
If
need.
we're including it as part of our vote consideration, I haven't really had a chance to, I just don't understand why we can't just vote on the,
It's literally, I
That's
honestly,
exactly what we're trying to say.
right.
yeah, I would
I
trust.
think you,
But that's
you
not
just
up to us to
make-
decide. That's up to Greg
Correct.
to write.
Right.
Correct.
So
You're right.
we
so that's
just,
why I'm saying, like, why referring
Right,
to
we
it in
shouldn't-
our vote?
we shouldn't.
It seems, I don't think that would be what we
Right.
want to do, because I'm not really.
Then I would like to request that there's a further amendment to the motion to make sure that we're addressing the items that are currently covered in that RFQ. We could take, you can look at the language in there, but we need being able to consider exactly the prior, because they're asking us to say that we have the certain
I
priorities.
think you cover yourselves by just saying
Saying
you
the
want the
roof.
whole roof
Yeah, we
looked
just want the
at.
whole
That's
roof.
it.
That's
Like,
it.
I think, I honestly do. And if I'm
Yes.
wrong, you can blame me, but I swear to God,
We'll find. I think-
I've read through this multiple times. I'm fairly familiar with this process, although I am not a,
Stop saying that because you just are.
no,
Like, it's
no, I'm not, I was gonna say I'm not the certified purchasing officer.
sorry. That you're not.
For the district. I am a designee on different
Yeah,
parts, so.
yeah, no, I get that, but then aren't we, if we're saying, if they asked us to give them their the sort of prioritization, and then we come back with just do the whole roof and.
okay, I'm going to say it one more time because I feel like I'm not being heard. They want a two-stage RFQ. They want it to include the roof, the full roof study, with the caveat that there may be an additional rest of the envelope study.
Then that's what we need to include in our stupid motion. That's what I would say.
That is what, because, I mean,
So.
to be
That's-
perfectly
that's
frank,
different,
the rest of the building study probably won't get done for years, all right, if ever. So,
It doesn't tie us
but,
to anything.
but it doesn't tie us to anything, but it does give
Doesn't
us.
slow us down.
Right.
So basically, it's purchasing power, right?
I would like to
We're letting-
suggest,
Yes.
that- would you like to amend the motion?
Okay, so I amend the motion
So,
to say,
Question though.
Yes,
because
okay.
It seems to me that.
I want to get this vote
adding
done.
the full.
I really honestly do.
I'm sorry?
I want to get this vote done. I mean, I think this is, are we clear on what we need to vote on?
Well, I want to get a vote done that you actually get approved on Tuesday and just get done. Because we've been now through this round several times. So I hear what you're saying. They want to hear the option for the envelope study. My understanding is, you might correct me, is that to write out the specifications as to what you want for the full envelope study is a little bit more extensive than what we're talking about now.
Yes.
It's a few
Yes.
lines, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot more ambiguity, and that's a time delay. It's going to throw us off track. Our priority is the roof.
Yes.
The roof, the roof,
Yes.
the roof. That is it. Right now, that is the roof. The roof needs to be replaced,
Okay,
addressed.
You're right.
then we'll just do the roof.
So it's as it was.
I don't think that's what they were asking for last night, Dave. I think we're gonna get it punted back because they were telling them.
Well, they want clear direction, so,
But then they can address that with Greg, right? I mean, if Greg wants to increase the scope, by all means.
The town has every right to look at everything else. They can go do their own RFQ on their own and do the rest of the envelope, if that's what the town chooses to do. Because it's, the building part is what is responsible for the town. For us as a school committee, right now, to open next fall, the roof is what I would like us to address, okay? If the town needs some other guidance to later on do a later on RFQ for an envelope, totally, we can do that at a separate time. But holding up the roof at this point, maybe it is purchasing power, I don't know those aspects, but I don't think that's for us as a school committee to be giving that type of guidance. I want the roof looked at, I want to make a plan, I want, if Greg can take his purchasing prowess and implement it in some other ways, and it's great, fantastic. But at this point, I think we need to clarify, we're voting on a recommendation for the RFQ, and then punt that over and let them do what they need to do.
Okay, so we just need to vote.
All in favor?
well,
We say what we in favor.
but I just amended it to
Do
say
you wanna rescind
something
that?
that you guys
Would you
didn't.
like to rescind your amendment?
I rescind my amendment.
Okay,
So we go back to the
Any more discussion? I mean,
table.
okay. All in favor? All opposed?
Not opposed, I abstain.
Abstain? Okay,
Okay, we got it, right?
thank you.
I have no idea,
All right, that was the first topic. That was an easy
no
one.
idea what the, just the roof.
So Megan, and did you guys, so you're speaking for the Green Meadow Future Committee?
I am.
So Megan and Josh, they didn't have anything, so they didn't know anyone else was going to be speaking tonight.
Correct, and we did talk to them briefly, but there wasn't a readout. It actually sounded like they had sent an email in, but maybe you didn't have a chance to see it. But regardless of what they
They
were gonna
didn't send any, no. So I've spoken to them just before this meeting.
Okay.
So neither Josh nor Megan felt they had anything else they particularly wanted to bring up in relation to Green Meadow Future Committee. So if you want to, you're welcome to make a comment or,
Yeah,
but
there is a couple
it
of
may
different
not be,
things. So there are a couple of different things. I know they were on deck to meet with you, Mary Jane, yesterday, right? And I think that meeting was canceled, right?
We did not meet.
So there are a couple of things that are, that I wanted to bring to your attention. One is, clearly we already talked about the roof. The other one is simply air circulation, air quality. We have a number of things that were on the long list of things needed to be done, for which we were given $600-some thousand, right? Some of those things are not done yet. So in other words, when you go around the classrooms, some of the univents, some of the fans, et cetera, are not working or not consistently working.
We didn't get $600,000 to go around to every single classroom and fix those univents and fans. We got
Okay.
$600,000 to replace the items and repair the pre-K and kindergarten wing. Based
Which
on the
included
asbestos remediation.
ensuring that the air circulation systems were functional.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So
so I do want to just suggest that some of these kinds of conversations, like that kind of conversation should be happening like with Mary Jane in the room, and so that we can really start shoring up the operations side and
Yep.
making sure that that is getting taken care of.
100% agreed. I'm bringing this up, but this was literally brought to our committee's attention by staff, that we have classrooms where there's not enough, there's not functioning circulation. There's a concern that the heat is going to come on soon, right? That, as we all know, when circulation's not there, heat is coming in, stale air. We're sitting here yawning. I was going to say, take a deep breath. You know, we need to ensure that we have proper air circulation. We have classrooms that don't have windows, right? we need to have proper air circulation.
So prioritizing the indoor air quality is what you're getting at.
And as we've
we
discussed in
need
the
to revisit.
past, a new assessment of air quality, indoor air quality, I believe you've scheduled. But if those things are not addressed prior to this, and it's not just to get a proper report, it's to make sure that our kids and our staff have the right air circulation in place,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not too expensive, you know.
Can I respond to this?
Sure, go ahead.
I do
Well,
feel
the
like,
tickets are in,
I
so-
don't think this conversation anymore should be happening. Like, I feel like what we're trying to do is start to move, and not to shut it down, but to build it up, so that the capacity is happening through the channels that are now available when there was a vacuum and when you had to step in and do everything. And not that you wouldn't still be a part of those conversations and we transition them, but we starting to have those happen. And maybe what the question then is, when is the meeting going to happen where this could be discussed, so that you're ensuring?
It's already been addressed. There were concerns that were raised.
Right, and I agree, that's part of the consideration, is that there are things that need to be happening directly, so that the answers directly can be provided within the context of the operational.
That was going to be the meeting yesterday, but Michelle was out and I went home, so.
And I understand what you're saying, but I
Yeah.
feel like this specific subject,
Yeah.
I can speak to.
Yeah.
And I think it's beneficial for
Yep.
people to have all the information at hand. And since this is being brought up, you know, in this community, things tend to move from this to a bigger thing. So in order to make it so that it's not a bigger thing, and let people know that we are addressing these things, I think, and have been.
Okay.
So one of the things, I know that this is coming from a walkthrough that the Green Meadow Committee did after one of their meetings. We do know that there was some questions for teachers. There were different things wrong with different vents in those buildings. There were already 4 of them that people on the Green Meadow Future Committee, I believe, already knew that we were waiting on parts. They were already looked at and were being addressed. The person is actually coming in on the 27th to fix multiple air handler units. The exhaust units on the roof, which was put in as a request from the Green Meadow Future Committee, which I responded to a couple of weeks ago, were already repaired and looked at.
Are these all updates in School Dude?
Yes, I updated them all in School Dude.
And so if they, and I think maybe one of the challenges is that they're not able to see some of the tickets.
So these ones were tickets that they specifically put in, so they got the response right from me.
So the updates are in the ticket in
Correct.
School Dude that the
Correct.
Green Meadow Future Committee can access
Correct.
and share with that. Okay.
Right.
Because
Right.
that's the part I'm not understanding, that if
Right.
the updates are in there, and teachers are also able to
They are.
create
Yep.
tickets. So if there's like a univent that's not working,
Right.
teachers are able to access it, or the understanding I had was that they could go to their principal if there was some challenge of accessing the information, and Tim would be able to do
Correct.
that. Okay.
Yep. So that chain of information flow and everything has been happening. I don't know why that wasn't a part of that conversation during that walkthrough. I was not there. I wasn't asked to be there. But I did provide that information. There are several units that will be repaired on the 27th that had parts on back order. We did, though, after that, do a walkthrough to every single classroom in the kindergarten wing. And kindergarten preschool wing, actually, I think I was a part of the kindergarten preschool wing, but I do think that they walked around to other parts of the building. I just didn't. But we did find 2 other units that the motors that were previously working at the beginning of school had burnt out. So we have both of those motors on request to be replaced as well. So,
There were also events that were not on based on
Correct.
the way that they're controlled on a switch in an opposite classroom.
Right, so we
to
taped
mitigate
it.
that, we taped all of the switches so that it wouldn't be, because it's right next to the light switches, so
Correct.
when you go and shut them off.
Right, yeah,
So
I mean, that's
There's now tape over all of those,
totally
so that can't
reasonable,
happen.
yeah. So now we went over and taped it
Yep.
so that they cannot be shut off, because that's actually, I think, two of the rooms that people had thought that they weren't working was purely because the light switch was off. So we just had to turn on the light switch and then it was working again. So just to calm concerns, we are aware of that. We are working on it. We have scheduled dates. We have parts on order. I have responded in School Dude. If, you know, and I understand the whole thing about going through the chains of communication. That's wonderful, and I appreciate that as well. But I am, and I'm probably against what all of you guys say, if someone wants to ask me directly at this moment, because we don't have a facilities person, and I don't want people to feel like their concerns aren't heard, aren't seen, or aren't being taken care of. So I will be willing to respond on those unless I'm told otherwise.
And also, just for clarity, if someone is not happy with Michelle's response for some whatever way, then that would be something that would go to
Yep.
Mary Jane. You know, that would be, because they're having all these parallel conversations.
Right.
And so it's hard to keep track of what is being responded to, what is
Sure.
not being responded to, who has access to what, who is not, or parts being ordered, or
Right.
is someone being told, no, we can't pay for this. Those are the pieces that I'm not clear on, and I think that,
I don't think we've ever said that.
yeah, and so that's where I want to make sure that
There was one piece that was brought up, which was the intake fan in the cafeteria. That was not on. It is generally not on until the heat goes on, because all it does is pull in cold air, so they wait for that to go through the heating coils. However, we said to turn that on, and it may have made the building colder, but due to the concerns with air filtration.
Turn it on.
So 2 weeks ago, we made that
Okay.
statement, and so that should be on as well.
Yeah, and so I just want to let you in on a couple of different things that you might not be aware of. So the walkthrough that was done with the Green Meadow Future Committee, you're right, some of these things, there was tickets filed. I think you guys are very responsive. Some of the information that I'm sharing is that we're literally hearing from, let's say, staff this week and concerns this week. And it's actually more concerns about either we're not getting updates, right? We're not sure when it's happening and we're concerned. Or we've been told that the issue you're addressing, we don't have money to solve.
So
And
I
was
have
like, I'm not sure how that would
absolutely
work,
no
but-
idea what that is about, because none of that has come to me.
Can you say that last part again, the issue that we're
The
addressing?
issue that you might raise, there's currently not funds to solve.
I have never had
And
that
I was like, well, that's
conversation.
news to me, if that would really be news, but I'll raise it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I don't,
it's good to hear that everything that seemingly is a problem is either backlog ordered for. If people ask us, hey, when can we be confident that all the systems should work and be repaired? Is it 2 weeks from now? Is it a month from now? Is it?
so I have the 27th. I mean, I can't give you an estimate on exactly when every single thing in Green Meadow is going to work properly.
No, just the.
I
just the air
appreciate the
circulation,
question. I
air
would love
So
to
you guys, I'm really sorry, but this is exactly the kind of thing that we want to make sure this gets addressed, but at a school committee meeting is not going to, there have been real reasons why we've needed to have some of these conversations happen here. And I think we're, for a lot of reasons, at a place where you can start shifting. And I appreciate the concerns, and you're bringing up immediate, and we don't yet, we're trying to establish that now. So I want to make sure that that happens.
Maybe the suggestion is that when you get those concerns, ask those people to enter them into School Dude, and I will respond to them. And I will
that's the
make
piece
that
I'm trying
commitment.
to understand, is it that they're not entering,
Has to be
they're not
into
getting in
School
there, or,
Yeah.
because the School Dude piece is so critical for so many reasons, besides just the action of getting done, but it's creating a historical understanding for our
Right,
building to
right.
demonstrate to the town, this is what we need
Right.
to maintain our building on an annual basis.
Exactly.
Right, right.
So it's really a two-part why that information has to go in there, where the going to you or, that is helping us advocate for maintaining our building on an ongoing, sustainable way by getting those details of what is critically wrong with it in each room or space. And so if that's not happening, I'm concerned about that, just because of what that is, lack of information we're able to share with
It
the
is
town.
new. Like, I mean, I want to be, cognizant of
It is
it's
new.
a new
Yeah,
system,
yeah,
and it's a,
And new
something for
processes.
everybody to get used to, even myself, like, for everyone to get used to. But I think it's a great tool for this district, especially in the situation we're coming out of and where we want to move to.
It's
So I
data, we
think
need the data.
we have to buy into it, and we really have to trust in that. I mean, like, I literally, if I don't respond, that's down on paper. That's even for me. Like, if I don't respond, they all come to me. So if you don't get a response, then that falls to me, and I'm willing to be held accountable for that.
There are also
So-
tickets that are going in the system. I put a ticket in for a teacher who reported to me that an issue was there. I got a response that I wanted to make sure was done. I contacted the teacher to find out if that was the case. So this is not something that anyone is taking lightly. So if they're into the school dude piece, they will be addressed.
So, Mary Jane, are you able to, at some point, look into what's for Green Meadow, the tickets that are out
do that,
there? Okay, just for sake of making sure that what people are putting in, they understand that you're getting some eyes on it, and that there's, whatever the responses are not in a...
I can print reports.
Yeah, we
And
can
also
print
that the teachers, clearly, if they're not feeling like that they know that is, and that capacity is now, that your commitment is there and the capacity to be able to have it go through school do, because it sounds like you've been getting these, and for a good reason, you feel responsible to be able to share those out.
It's not that actually, we are more than happy to talk
I'm
to the
glad
staff,
that they
right?
wanna
Honestly,
talk
like,
to you about
it's a
it.
sense of trust, right? Like,
Yeah.
look, we're having this
Absolutely.
issue.
Yeah.
In all reality, it's not that they might not feel it's not
Right.
getting done. It is, we have new principals, we have a new superintendent. It's not clear who I should talk to. We've talked to you guys in the past, can you help?
Yeah.
It might be as
Right.
simple as that.
If
right?
you're not in school, then
Absolutely.
you aren't going to know about the issue. So if I get you, it's 2 weeks later, and it could have been resolved by that time.
And I think that's
But
part of...
that staff has not had access 2 weeks ago, right, to school do. Not everybody had access to
I think
to
it
school
was
do.
last
To be fair,
week,
to staff, right?
maybe?
You know, I'm
I
just
don't
saying in
know.
the future, not now.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
And I
Yeah,
think
I believe,
also,
was it
the
last
onus is
week or the
also
week
on us to
before?
make sure that we are providing a structure
Correct.
Correct.
to ensure that the upward feedback is happening and allowed to be happening. There's no breakdown, and that's for me important to understand, is that the feedback that they're sharing to the Green Meadow Future Committee is then going to the building administrators for them to be able to take action and, if necessary, escalate it upward to Mary Jane. Because that is the most efficient process operationally to get done. Because the Green Meadow Future Committee is not an operational, like you,
Agreed,
you know,
100%.
should not be involved in operational day-to-day stuff, right? You're an advisory subcommittee, which is what we value, your advisory information.
You're preaching to the choir,
Yeah,
trust me.
yeah, but I want to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that you're able to do that, because again, part of your future planning, right? We haven't even tapped into a lot of that yet, beyond just the roofing. And so I want to make sure that everyone's comfortable. And if there's a breakdown in that, then we find out what it is, and we have awareness on it, and we can work through that.
You need to get into the habit of asking the first question, did you post it in School Dude? That's going forward.
We certainly ask the questions,
And
right?
just, and then if they're not getting the
And
answers,
if it was,
then...
maybe they didn't have access, possibly, if that was the issue. I don't know when these
Yeah.
concerns
That's-
were raised,
Because
so.
we got to wean you guys off of the operational and get you in more back into the
Yeah, it's
bigger
not,
picture.
did we not ask? We certainly asked. Did you? It wasn't always yes, but in some situations it was, we raised it, but we're getting an answer back, or we're not getting feedback, and some of these issues might have been raised before even the talk of, hey, you now have access to School Dude is here, right?
Right.
We also don't have a facilities manager, right, which I know is coming. But
You're right.
that hinders, of course, the implementation of some things as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
But on the school side, we can definitely make sure we have our pathways so that when that facility is managed, so I think we can, as we shifting things over so that they are starting, so that everyone's starting to understand what the pathway they can go through,
100%.
right, in operations. And I think that also comes down to, within that building, Mary Jane, ensuring that people know and they can start using that, because if they haven't been able to yet and they don't know that it's there and it's very new.
Well, any new system rollout is just always, it takes some
Right.
getting used to,
But
you know.
it is a
Yeah.
great
I think
point.
some of the problem is, I have to be honest with you, I have no
How do I know? What's it supposed to be doing? Is it supposed to be on? Is it supposed to be off? I have no idea.
So what we
I
have
think
said,
that's part of the problem.
if you have a question, put it in. If there's a question, put it in. If you're not sure,
Right, but I mean, I think that's what the general feel is.
Right, no, and I totally get that, I 100, like, when we went in Patty Twohig's room, and she said, my Univent's been working, and we're like, no. You know,
And you're not a maintenance kind of, to know that, right?
I would have no
I had 3
idea.
lights out, and I didn't even know, and Ed, the custodian, said, do you know you have 3 lights out? And I said, nope, I didn't know I had 3 lights out.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
so I think if there are concerns, if someone has a concern, you don't need to be convinced that it's the just put it in.
Yeah.
Because it's very simple for whomever's in there to
Rule
say
it out.
it's checked, it's fine, and that way we have that tracking mechanism as well. And the reason I say that they do know, and this was not, trying to do anything other than, when we were doing the walkthrough, we had sent out the information, and we went into one teacher's classroom, and we're looking at the Univent, and she said, oh, I was just about to enter that into school too.
Right.
So I think that there is a relief among some of our staff too, in particular, that they do have access to this piece. So if we can encourage it, and if there, you can say, I'm not sure that my door is working.
It's so critical
Put it
for
in.
our future planning that we get this information in there. I mean, I just, for that purpose alone is why, I mean, the Post-it note passing in the hallway has not served us well.
Correct.
So the last quick comment
Well
on
said.
School Dude. 100% agreed, tickets in a School Dude. Are you seeing that staff is doing it today for tech issues? I.e. smart board not working, projector not working?
They already have, that's a totally different system,
So
and
that's a
they
different
already
system.
have access to that and have been doing it all along. That's been in place for help desk, yeah. The IT department has a different set of software
Gotcha.
that they use.
Okay, great.
They changed
Those
it,
are all the points.
They did change,
So instead of going,
Before we used to get a response back, but I don't think we get a response, but do they still close the ticket?
I actually have nothing to do with that, so I couldn't even.
so it may be that because they changed it because folks were having a hard time going into the,
I should've brought my
not wanting
channels.
to, whatever, going into the web portal part, so they changed it to just the help desk part, email. I can ask if,
Right.
when they close it in their system, if that generates an email, if you only submit it through the through the
School
email.
Dude it does. Just saying.
Okay, can we move on to the
Great.
next
Yeah.
agenda?
So, thank you very much. You highlighted an important thing for us to discuss. and-
Clearly, we have a lot to work through. Thank you.
Just bringing it up.
It is, it's all important conversations, and I just will say that, I don't wanna.
So,
People really want to.
Oh, no.
Well, do we
Yes.
have time to? Is that
I appreciate that.
mean, do we have
And you
time
have a
till
way
the-
about you that
till the next
is
meeting?
very,
Who does?
very
Persistent.
non-accusatory. No, very non-accusatory is what I was
Not
saying.
accusatory, but, you very point, motivated,
Yeah.
deliberate, and intentional, and I think that's very important when you need to get a point across, so
I think we should
I
all just
appreciate
bring our
that.
sleeping bags next time.
So we're going to invest in sleeping bags here at the school committee. Should we vote on that?
Yeah, no, I was just saying maybe in the future, we just bring our sleeping bags and then we just end up.
Real
we
smart.
just-
I was just saying that I should've brought my jammies.
of 11.
So next is Next is our new pilot program superintendent evaluation. I would offer the option to table that until the next meeting,
That's exactly where I was going.
because that was just for information. We can look at, we have in our inboxes information to be able to look at. Yes.
Yes. One of the things that we will need to vote on a part of it, though, whether or not we actually want to be part of this pilot program.
By when do you think we need to vote upon
do that at
that
the 10th?
tomorrow?
We could do that on the 10th.
We could do that on
Yeah,
the 10th?
yeah.
Okay. So I'll ask you to make sure to queue us up for that, which means
Sure.
help us with the prep for that agenda item so that we are ready to go on the 10th.
So all that stuff from today, just want to move it into the 10th
Okay.
folder.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Great, okay. So we are now moving into citizens comments.
Of the 4 or 5 citizens we have left,
Can I say one quick thing? The WAVM presentation brought me back to wonderful times in my life. Living in the studio as the radio CEO, and it brings me so much joy that the telethon and this part of Maynard is still happening, because I discovered what my strengths were through the music program and through being in WVM, and being at
Well,
Janet.
you're pretty awesome at what you do as well, so I think if that was the fun foundation to where you are today, that speaks volumes, so.
It was a good time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hi, so Heather Nickel, this is up because I'm freezing.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm gonna give you guys a compliment sandwich, if you're familiar with that term. So I love this agenda with the IOD, that stuff. That's a great addition to this, so thank you, whoever added that. I would like to stress that if we don't have a clear communications policy in place, which is my understanding as a CPAC member and attending these school committee meetings last year that we did, but that we put one in place so that we don't have parents and everyone waiting and not knowing, first off, the protocol for that, and also when to expect a response from a teacher or an administrator. The other thing is thank you for the PowerPoint, actually having the graph have axes labeled and pieces labeled, but we still, that Mary presented, but we're still having issues with like font size. It was really hard to read no matter where you were, so if there's some place to provide that to people so they can see it, that would be helpful. But I did like the axes piece. And, oh, I meant to start with this. Thank you for moving the citizen comments earlier up and allowing people who wanted to address Jamie or Kate to do that. So thank you for that.
Thanks, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So that was the intention the whole time, but I just realized with the time of it that having that right away as opposed to, we had asked them if they could stay for WAVM, but that all went longer, you know, so. Yeah, and just to be clear with communications, that is definitely, I think what we don't have, we have pathways at this point, but I don't think we have response times. And I know that's been something that came up last year. So I think that would be an important piece
Very
for us
critical.
to look at.
Very
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah, and one of our CPAC and administrative collaboration meetings, we actually looked at something that
Yeah.
Dr. Girardi had put in place that did have response times, and
Okay.
that's where I got my impression that
If
he had implemented that. But
I would love to see if you have a
I'll
document
see if I
that
can
you-
find my old, but I mean, you were at that, so if you have your old notes, he like.
I honestly, I appreciate that I was there. But I get like
regardless,
30 emails a day related to
It
school
wasn't really
committee.
followed last year,
Not
and it
more.
doesn't sound like it's being followed now, or being well spread to people, so.
Yeah.
Like making sure that that's a policy that's put in place, especially in light of you being very new here, and having an
Acknowledgement is
understanding.
important.
We also
It's
have new personnel too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good priority as we're looking at subcommittee work. So if you do come across it, I will see if I come across it too.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Just laughing.
For the support staff, not voting.
October 15th, Tuesday, October 15th, at the Maynard Public Library, trustee room, from 3 to 4:30. And I know that you guys can't be there right at 3, but I had to balance the high school getting out much earlier, and so that was the time that, and it also, because they're only open, the room was only open from 2 to 7, and I had to fit in the second group after that. That's how that worked.
I think we're gonna see a bunch of people tomorrow. and
Great.
together.
That would be
Usually we could
fantastic.
share that earlier than later.
Thank you.
All right. We have members' comments still. Do members need to make comments tonight, or may we?
Oh, can I just ask one question? The ClearGov, is that up and going, and can we take advantage of it? Have we paid for it?
It's in there.
Michelle, it's active, because I went on it already, but I didn't see it on our website.
is it up?
Is it, how do we get into it?
Yeah, it's up. ClearGov is up.
Do we need
Is it on our
a
website?
pass? Do we need
Is
a
the
link?
link?
Oh.
You can just go into ClearGov
We didn't
and
do
just
the
see
link to
all
our
the
website.
Yeah.
I will submit a help desk ticket right now.
What's to prove?
Excellent.
Look at that. Don't we need something?
Okay, and so,
Do we care if acting goes into it?
No, I'm just wondering.
Because they can only access that.
So we get all the information, right, okay, we get all the information.
Yeah.
Okay, and my only other question that I was going to follow up with, if you guys are okay with it, the Assabet vocational rep that we said in November we were going to invite her, do you want me to invite her? So
I'll
that
reach out
she's
to her.
got- You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
I
so
already
she's got
got
plenty of notice?
Yeah.
That would be great.
I'll reach out to her.
great.
All right.
And we will need to prep very soon for the October 10th meeting. I think there are some like presentations that are due, like the quarterly budget forecast, Michelle, or something. So we're gonna have to, we'll send out emails very quickly.
Yeah,
in relation to that.
that was one of the things I was going to mention about, just that looking at the annual calendar to see where the rolling, because I know there's a couple of reporting out, and just make sure that they're aware that that would be an expectation that we have.
Tomorrow.
And then the guide for that.
And I think last night at the Budget Subcommittee meeting, Greg mentioned a letter going out from the selectmen about, the first letter, I think, about the budget. Remember, he mentioned that in deadline of October 31st?
Yep.
Is that the initial, like, level service, level funding, and versus improvement? We have to have that
Yeah, so
by-
normally we would actually send him the letter with those budgets. The charter, I believe, is by January 1st. So that's what we kind of stuck to before. He is asking for it sooner. We have passed that down to our principals, administration, budget holders. They are all actively working. I asked them for their department requests back by October 18th.
And I know that there's a joint school council meeting for a tribe one there.
Prior to that.
Prior to that, October, I think 8th or 7th?
I actually don't know the exact date, but.
I think it's a Monday, I think at 4:30, which I think will be part of a budget.
So that joint school council, they should go back to their principals, and the principals should take their recommendations and build them into their budgets.
I thought it was earlier than usual when he said that.
It is
so
earlier
is.
than
Okay,
usual.
That's fine.
He also said that he expected us to be late.
Oh, well, setting some low standards there, huh?
No, he said
He understands if we're
he understood that it was much earlier and that we have a whole process to go through, so it's a little bit different. So he would, although that's the target date,
Get as close as you can to it.
Right.
Can I make some comments?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if anyone else. I just wanted to mention that I had updated, or I'd worked with Becky at the town level to update some broken links under the education banner for folks in the community. There's one where it will direct now to the school committee members directly to our website. It will also direct to the meeting schedule directly if you go to the town. The CPAC link actually directs to the CPAC page, and Assabet Valley directs to, so all of those links now, they've expanded and they've been updated, because I know that's been confusion about where to find information if people go to the town website. So Instagram, I think okay, great. And
Done.
all right. And and then also you're going to follow up with a couple of reporting outs for what we have upcoming in our agendas. We just talked about that. And I think that was actually it. We had a collaboration meeting, CPAC collaboration meeting. I can't remember the date now. It was a Tuesday and a half ago. And it was great to hear the reporting out from the subcommittee regarding dyslexia and the screening process that Heather was part of that subcommittee, and how that is really going. And there was conversations about the tools that will be used for that screening process. I think that there were some factors relating to developing a strategic plan that didn't seem clarified, because we want to understand whatever we're doing this year in this pilot or this first year, how we're getting data to understand if it's measurable, are we meeting our goals, and if, next year if there need to be tweaks to that, that we're collecting things along the way to make sure that those necessary changes are happening. And I think that, I know Charles was able to report back to you that, and it would be great to maybe think about having your presence at one of our next collaboration meetings. I think that was a desire at some point, so. Yeah, so I think maybe we can punch up some dates and whatever, that might be helpful.
I think the next one is in November.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's not, they're like every other month, because then the in-between months would be when the subcommittee members should be meeting, so I know we're going to be having a survey soon, so.
If you could share that with the committee too, I wouldn't mind attending one of those meetings.
Yeah, is there any, I think just, yeah, we can see which ones they are, and then you can
That
maybe
sounds great.
decide.
Appreciate it, yeah, just to listen, not to, obviously, I can't, you know.
Yeah,
'cause there'll be-
yeah, well, they're going to be talking about like a procedure, like
Perfect. That
a lot
would
of
be
different
great,
things.
especially with the program. Yeah, that's great.
That, you know, things are bubbling up right now, and so I think based on some of the comments from earlier today, I think you would be helpful to have you there. Okay. Yes, I think that as well. And also, thank you for everyone in the public for speaking up and sharing. I always like it.
No, I have
Thank
no
you.
idea. I just didn't
I'm
think
done.
you needed it in a different.
Any other member comments that you'd like to make tonight? Okay, all right, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
I'll first it, and then you can second it.
Oh, sorry.
I'll, motion to adjourn?
Oh, entertain a motion. I thought you were I'll make a motion to adjourn, right now.
I second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
You can't make the motion yourself?
I-
Do the meetings happen here?
Interesting question. I'll
Is that-
look into it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Because I was wondering that, I was like,
Well, I
is it the
noticed
chair
that-
not make their own motions?
No, I think so, because I noticed that,
Maybe,